Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission's regular meeting for January 22nd, 2024. This time we'll move on to roll call. Commissioner Britton.
Commissioner Bott. Here. Commissioner Britton here. Commissioner Fisher.
Here, I think.
Commissioner Fraser.
Here.
Commissioner Knable.
Here.
Commissioner Rasmussen, absent. Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Thank you. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Unless there's a motion to amend, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Fisher. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Britton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Motion is approved, 6-0. Item 4 tonight is open forum. This is a chance for anyone who's in the audience here tonight to speak on something that is not on the agenda later in the evening. So just to give you a preview, the mining permit, discount tire, Gerber collision, and Mississippi landings, you will have an opportunity to speak on those items later. This is an opportunity to speak to the commission that is about something that is not on the agenda tonight. So at this time, I will open forum. If anyone would like to speak on an issue that is not on tonight's agenda, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no takers, we'll close open forum. Item 5 is Chair's explanation of the hearing process. The Planning Commission is a volunteer advisory group to the City Council. One of the Commission's functions is to hold public hearings and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. The purpose of these public hearings is to provide an opportunity for each applicant and citizens to present information, ask questions, and express opinions. Since these proceedings are televised and recorded for the public record, anyone wishing to speak must step up to the podium and give their name and address before addressing the commission. Each speaker tonight during the public hearing will be limited to 3 minutes for their comments. Staff reports are prepared and provided to the applicant and Planning Commission in advance of the meeting. The first step in the hearing will be for staff to present a summary of the report. The applicant will then have the opportunity to briefly explain the proposal and provide additional information or comments. Anyone wanting to speak in favor or against the proposal will then be heard. Upon completion of the testimony, the hearing will be closed to public comment. The Planning Commission will then discuss and act on the matter. 2 complete agenda packets are available for viewing on the back table. Please do not remove these items. The City Council will act on agenda items 6.1, Holcim mining permit, and 6.2, discount tire, at their meeting on Wednesday, February 7th, 2024, which starts at 7 p.m. And agenda item 6.3, Gerber collision and glass, and 6.4, Mississippi landing, will be dealt with at the meeting on Wednesday, February 21st, 2024, which also starts at 7 p.m. With that, we'll move on to item 6, public hearings and applications. 6.1 is the Holcim 2024 mining permit, case MP 2024-002, with Mike Marosla presenting.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Holcim MWR has submitted their 2024 annual mining permit as required by City Code. The Nelson Sand and Gravel Facility is located at 11250 Gray Cloud Trail. Mining has occurred on the site since the 1950s. The applicant last year processed 736,000 tons of aggregate material. That material is processed, washed, screened, and loaded onto barges and trucks to construction sites throughout the metropolitan area. In August of last year, the applicant added a new piece of equipment that was used to clean up or remove waste sand for previously mined areas. This piece of equipment's been operating fine according to the applicant. We did contact our public safety department. Every year we have renewed this permit to see if there's been any complaints. And this last year we did not have any noise complaints as required per the conditions of approval. The 2024 proposed operations, the applicant is proposing to mine again 700 750,000 to 750,000 tons of aggregate material. The applicant does have approvals to operate 24 hours a day. Back in 1995, they were approved for that. And they will continue to do the reclamation process within the Oak Savannah area. If I can find the pen, sorry. The reclamation area is this yellow area on the screen here. That's what we'll be focusing this year. The applicant is also working on an EIS for future expansion. It's also worth knowing that as part of the approval process, we do send out notices to 18 properties within a half mile of the subject site. At the time of writing this report, we did not receive any comments and recommendations on the screen. I'm here for any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions for staff? All right, thank you. This time, if the applicant would like to approach and add anything?
Good evening, Commissioner members. I'm Patty Bessler with Holcim MWR Inc. Address is 2815 Dodd Road in Eagan, Minnesota. So Mike summed up our annual application very concisely. We're going to continue with the operations as we have done for the last 20-plus years that I've been with the company. The only change this year, it was introduced later in the season last year, is the suction dredge that will remove sand that was put on a previously mined out area that would have been in the 80s when they didn't have the technology back then to go as deep and get the reserves as we are doing now. So we're going to try to lift that sand off and try to get those sand and gravel reserves that are underneath that sand that's been sitting there for all these years. Otherwise, our environmental permits are all in good standing. We have an air permit with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, a individual stormwater permit. Our tanks are all secondarily contained and are registered with the state of Minnesota, so I'm happy to answer any questions. With me tonight is Joe Newman. Joe is our new plant manager down at Nelson. He assumed that role, I'm going to say August or September. So,
All right, thank you.
any questions?
Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So per city code, this is not an application we need to hold a public hearing on. So at this time, I'd ask if there's any other further discussion by commission. Seeing no other discussion, I'd look for a motion at this time then.
Motion to approve, subject to the conditions stipulated in the staff report.
So I have a motion from Commissioner Britton. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Fisher. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to item 6.2, discount tire, case CUP 2024-001, with Connor Jakes presenting.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Great to be with you. The application before you this evening is a conditional use permit for Discount Tire. Subject site location is located at 8647 and 8649 East Point Douglas Road South. The subject site is located adjacent to the current Wendy's restaurant as well as the current Target site. And I'd also note that the site is adjacent to two major roadways and Highway 61 as well as Jamaica Avenue South. A little background on the site. The site was originally developed in 1991 for proposed automotive repair use. Following those approvals, in 1992, there was a minor subdivision completed that split the lots. The northern portion of the site was intended to be utilized for office space at the time. However, up until most recently, in fall of 2023, the site was operated by Big O Tires, which was an automotive repair use. And you also note in March of 2023, there was an application before you for a car wash, which was the Rocket Car Wash. However, the applicant withdrew that application, thus allowing the application before you this evening. So the proposal tonight is for a minor automotive repair use in Discount Tire. The site is zoned mixed use, and an automotive repair use minor is permitted within the district with a conditional use permit. Now note the applicant is proposing to utilize the existing site layout and building with minor updates to the architectural elevations, parking lot, and landscaping. So the vehicle parking, the applicant has proposed 38 stalls on site. There's currently 34. The increase in 4 stalls is made by the north section of parking. Currently, there's angled stalls on site. However, the applicant's proposing 90-degree stripe parking to increase the parking count. Updated elevations are on screen before you. The applicant's proposing updates to paint, trim, and then new storefront with a canopy overhang. And landscaping, the applicant's proposing a few additional plantings as noted on the slide in front of you, and then also keeping the plantings currently on site. With that, I'll leave the recommendation on screen before you. Staff is available for any questions, and the applicant is in attendance as well.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Connor, I've just got one for you then. So Big O Tire used to be there. Presumably, they had a conditional use permit as well. The reason we're back for a new one is because it's sat for less or for more than a year since for being used for that purpose, or?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so the original approvals in 1991, the site was actually zoned B3 and permitted automotive repair use by right, so there was no conditional use permit required. However, the current zoning district of mixed use requires a conditional use permit, so taking this opportunity to have current approvals for the site. So,
Understood. Thank you very much. Any other questions then? Thank you. This time, if the applicant would like to approach and add anything additional.
Good evening. I'm Todd Mosher with R.A. Smith on behalf of the applicant. Just wanted to clarify, Discount Tire, which maybe most of you are already familiar because they are in the Twin Cities area already, but their primary use is just tires and wheels. So they don't typically do any auto service related things like oil changes or mufflers or brakes or any kind of fluid stuff. They might, windshield wipers maybe, little minor accessories like that. So other than that, familiar with the staff report, working with staff. Looking forward to coming to town with your approval, and I'm here if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. I think the audios are working out in the hallway now. Yeah. At this time, I will open public hearing on the application. So anyone wishing to speak for or against the application can step to the podium, state their name and address for the record. Nobody on this one, huh? All right, we'll close public hearing. Any further discussion from commission? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Stevens. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Knable. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item 6.3 is Gerber Collision, case SP 2024-005 and CUP 2024-005, with Riley Rooney presenting.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Before you this evening, we have a conditional use permit and site plan review for Gerber Collision and Glass. So the proposed location is at 7300 West Point Douglas Road South. It is currently adjacent to the Extra Space Storage and the Metropolitan Transit Park and Ride. So a little bit of background on the site. It is currently vacant, and it was created as part of the Extra Space Storage expansion in 2017. The site, which is currently visible from Highway 61 and West Point Douglas Road South, is comprised of grassy vegetation and softwood trees. The proposal by the applicant is proposing, 16,940 square foot automotive repair use. This would be owned and operated by Gerber Collision and Glass and have the hours of operation of Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The construction of the new single-story structure would offer collision, auto body, and auto glass repair. It is currently zoned PB or in the planned business district, and it is guided as commercial in the 2040 comprehensive plan. So an automotive repair use major within this district does require a conditional use permit. So the applicant is proposing a single site access off of West Point Douglas Road, which is highlighted in yellow. The applicant is also proposing 2 different areas for parking. The first is in the front, the second is in the back. I'm going to touch on parking on the next slide, so if you just hold your horses there. There will also be fencing around the rear and sides of the structure. The applicant is proposing a 6-foot Trex fence that would wrap around the building. This would provide additional screening to the vehicles that are being serviced by Gerber Collision and Glass. And then, in addition, the trash enclosure will be located in the southwest corner of the site that is highlighted in orange. It will be surrounded by a 6-foot enclosure, which will be comprised of the same utility brick materials as proposed on the principal structure. And then the gate will be comprised of the same Trex fence that will be surrounding the building. And then lastly, the building meets it meets and exceeds all setbacks required within the district. So the applicant is proposing 63 stalls total. Of the 63 stalls, 19 will be out front for visitor parking. Of the 19 front stalls, 3 will be ADA accessible. And then the remaining 43 stalls will be in the rear parking area surrounded by the fence. These will be exclusively for cars being serviced by Gerber and also for employee parking. And then we have architecture. So within the planned business district, code requires a minimum of 65% architectural class 1 or 2 materials. The applicant is proposing over 75% class 1 materials, so this is exceeding all architectural requirements that we have. They're also proposing 23% class 3 materials, and then the breakdown is listed there. And then for landscaping, there was a tree inventory taken, although no tree mitigation is required with the construction of the site. They have proposed 33 overstory trees, 31 coniferous trees, and 75 shrubs. And then they're also proposing to maintain the existing vegetation, which is mostly trees at the rear of the site. So before you, I have a recommendation, and I thank you for your time. The applicant is also here for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? All right, thank you. This time, if the applicant would like to approach and add anything additional.
Good evening. My name is Jason Dukovich with Charles Vinton George Architects out of Naperville, Illinois. As like a thank you all for reviewing and considering our application. I'm certainly happy to be here presenting in front of you guys and bringing this project to the area. Gerber's a great company, that is expanding across the nation, fairly quickly, bringing a high-end, high technology collision center, to the area. Be more than happy to answer any questions that come up.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicants? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open public hearing on the application. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application can step to the podium, state their name and address for the record. This time, we'll open public hearing. All right, seeing none, we'll close public hearing. Further discussion from the commission? Seeing none, I would look for a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Motion from Commissioner Fisher. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Second from Commissioner Bott. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item 6.4, Mississippi Landing, case PP 2024-004, with Emily Schmitz presenting.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I know you probably opened your packet over the weekend and you were like, my goodness, I've seen this before, right? Some of you are new commissioners, but this is a very similar submittal that you saw about 2 years ago. Pulte was in front of you. And so bringing this forward, I wanted to tell the story, right? We're going to look at the background. A lot of work and partnerships have been done and created over the past 3 years, particularly around this site. So I want to make sure that we're working through that story ahead of getting into the details of the specific application that's before you this evening. So I'm going to start all the way back in 1937. As you can see, this is the former Mississippi Dunes Golf Course site. From about 1937 until the early to mid 1990s, the site was a tilled field. Somewhere around the early to mid 1990s, the site was approved for and was mass site graded for a golf course. That golf course operated then from the 90s until about 2017 when it did close. But as you can see between the aerial images here, that mass site grading touched every corner of this particular site as a part of that process. The golf course closed in 2017 and has been vacant since that time. The current property owner purchased the property in 2019.
Can you speak louder?
It's also important to look at the history of the comprehensive plan and land use as a part of this particular site. So we'll start in 2030. So that update, so the 2030 update started in 2011. We wanted to differentiate this particular golf course from the surrounding property owners, so it was guided as straight golf course. This was under the thought process that a golf course could perhaps redevelop, and we wanted to differentiate it from the park that was adjacent. Between that time and around 2017, when the 2040 Comprehensive Plan update was started, a lot of ideas about a potential redevelopment of the golf course were thrown around, anywhere from a campground to a resort to a music festival. So we recognized that we needed to be sure that we were thinking about how we wanted to see this particular site potentially redevelop in the future. So in 2017, as a part of that 2040 Comprehensive Plan update, we re-guided this site to transition area planning. Transition area planning allows for additional planning efforts prior to the potential development or redevelopment of a site. That's typically a master planning process. So it's a planning tool that gives the ability to kind of get it right the first time. Let's look at the details and how we kind of want a particular area or a site to redevelop or develop and make that clear path to move forward. So the city started this process in towards the end 2020. We started by hiring a consultant, ISG in this particular case, to start putting together that master plan, focusing specifically on the vision of the council and the strategic goals of the community to provide access to the Mississippi River for all abilities. In addition, also continuing to provide for a diversity of housing opportunities within the community. So keeping those two major goals in mind, we worked through the master planning process, as I mentioned, starting at the end of 2020. As you can see, a process through the entirety of the year, starting with review at the Parks and Recreation Commission, to the City Council in May, continuing on with online public forum to provide feedback in that capacity, as well as holding an open house here at City Hall. And then if you recall, some of you commissioners were on the commission at that time, but it was before you, and ultimately onto the City Council for approval. So this master plan had two parts to it. As I mentioned, the two strategic goals of the City Council, again, providing that access for all abilities to, I should say, public access to the Mississippi River, and then of course providing a variety of housing opportunities within the community. So as we think about and as we thought about the land use of this particular site, we kind of had to look at the surroundings. This particular site is unique. It does have a train track that runs adjacent to the east side, so we have to take that into consideration when we're thinking long-range planning opportunities. 103rd Street, the realignment of that, I'll talk more about the details later on, but we do have to take that into consideration. So as we looked at the land use, we recognized that a little bit of a higher density on that northern portion of the site was appropriate from a planning perspective, and then the remainder of the site proposed as single-family housing. And then looking specifically at the parks and trails and the open space, the master plan proposed somewhere around 40 acres to be preserved as park and open space, including both active and passive uses, again, focusing on providing access for all folks to the river with paved trails, natural trails, proposing even a boat launch to have some water activity and coordinate with those potential opportunities within the backwaters of the Mississippi with the lower depth of the river. So after the master plan was approved, in order to align our comprehensive land use map with that approved master plan, the city submitted an application in about 2022 to align the land use from the master plan with the map. This solidified the dedication, I shouldn't say dedication, but conservation of that 40 acres plus or minus adjacent to the water being preserved as that park and open space at such time the site potentially were to develop or a property owner wanted to dedicate it. And then the majority of the site, of course, guided for single family or low density residential, and that north little corner there guided as medium density. It's particularly important to note the triangle, as we affectionately call it internally, which is the old driving range, was and continued to be guided as medium density. So after we aligned our comprehensive plan with the master plan, we did receive an application by Pulte Homes, if you do recall, for a proposed development on this site. Given that development was proposed over 250 units, they are required to complete and conduct an EAW, an environmental assessment worksheet. This is early coordination with a lot of different organizations and stakeholders within as they review the environmental impact of a potential development. That notice of decision was a negative declaration by the City Council in March of 2022. That document does provide the framework for any additional studies that might be required. And so since that time, several studies and assessments have been done to address those potential impacts. And I'm going to leave my presentation at that. The developer and some of their environmental professionals will provide some more details later on in the presentation. So I've given you a bit of the story and the background. Now we'll look at the specific project in the application that is proposed before you this evening. So it is a preliminary plat proposed with 377 single-family units. These lots are proposed, some of them 40-foot wide lots. They're very similar to the lots that you would see in the Capstone development or the Settlers Bluff development, just at the top of the hill from this particular site. They're proposing 52.5-foot wide lots. These are very similar to the lots that you would see in the Hinton Woods development, if you're familiar. And then they're also providing 65-foot wide lots closer to the park and open space adjacent to the river. And those are lots similar to what you would see in the Park View Point neighborhood, just to give you a reference. The project is proposed at 2.47 units per acre. Now this is a net density. This does align with our comprehensive plan, which is 1 to 4 in those low density guided areas. We did average the density. If you recall in the Pulte proposal, there was more of a medium density proposed in that north corner. In this particular case, it is proposed all as single family. So we averaged the density across the site. With that, this project is proposed with a PUD, or a planned unit development. Now, a PUD is a planning tool that we use in several different instances, but specifically in this instance, it really encourages us to have the ability to provide some life cycle housing or a diversity of housing products, while also preserving perhaps natural features or open and park space that we might not be able to if we followed the zoning standards specifically. So this gives us a little bit of a flexibility to really focus on preserving those areas of a potential development when or how we can with a PUD, while also continuing to provide for an appropriate development for the area. So not only do we look at the specifics of the zoning code itself, but this particular area lies within the Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area. It's a mouthful, MRCA, don't say it 10 times fast. But this is also standards that were in fact developed by the DNR, but the city does enforce those. So it is an overlay district in our zoning code. So we are tasked with enforcing that as a part of a potential development that is within those districts. So this particular project area is within two different districts within the MRCA. So the first is the RN districts. That's that yellow that you see on the screen. That district requires 20% of the acres to be preserved as a part of a potential development as park and open space. This particular project is proposing to preserve 46 of those acres as a part of the project, so above and beyond that 12 acres. This particular district is characterized by existing residences as well as potential development or residential developments, and of course, focusing on protecting or enhancing the park and open space exactly as this proposal has. The second district within the MRCA is the SR. And this particular district, this project as a whole is proposing to preserve 64 acres as a whole, which is again above and beyond the 10.58 or 10% of the area within that district that is being preserved. This particular district really focuses, it recognizes that it is removed from direct access to the river. So it really focuses on conservation and avoiding erosion and stormwater direct runoff into the river. And I'll talk more in detail about that on a different slide, but giving you a general idea of what these districts are tasked with, what they recognize is within them, and how this particular project is meeting that standard. So in summary, this project as a whole is preserving 110 acres as park, open space, ponding, and wetlands. So I may have fibbed a bit. I am going to tell just a little bit more of a story as it relates to park and open space, because again, a lot of work and a lot of partnership has gone into where we've gotten to today. So since the Pulte proposal did not continue on, the city, however, wanted to continue to pursue purchase and ownership of a portion of this park and open space as outlined by the master plan. So the city, in coordination and collaboration with the county, who became a financial partner to secure purchase of the 19.91 acres, or identified as Outlot D, as we look at an image, we purchased that property in 2023 from the property owner. I want to be clear, we coordinated that purchase with the existing property owner ahead of potential development on the site. So in addition, this image doesn't reflect it very well, but that 19.91 acres wasn't necessarily accessible. So the city worked with the property owner who dedicated 9.6 additional acres to the city, which, if you're familiar with the site, is kind of where that access road comes in, and it's where the clubhouse was. There's a parking area. So the property owner understood that we really wanted to be able to provide access to this newly purchased park and open space. So he dedicated or deeded those acres to the city, and then as well as provided us an access easement along that, it's ultimately a paved road through the golf course so that we could open that area up sooner than later to the public. And finally, I'd also like to mention an additional 4 acres will be dedicated as a part of a final development plan for this site. And finally, now I'm on finally, the property owner is also, there's these other 2 parcels that I do have on this image. The property owner is working with the DNR and has been for several years now for purchase of both of these properties. So the DNR is interested in the 12 acres in the southeast corner, as well as the 35 acres, which again we affectionately call the triangle or the old driving range. So the property owner is committed and will continue to work on that sale to the DNR. So a quick overview. As a part of that master plan, again, we contemplated all of the items or components that we wanted to include as a part of that park, active and passive. So we're currently working to hire a consultant to work through more of the specifics and more of the details of what we would like that active park area to look like. This is a very early rendering, but I thought it was good to kind of paint a little bit of the early vision or the early picture. Some of the features would include a park building, water access, paved and natural trails. But again, the huge focus of the design of this park is to ensure that folks of all abilities, whatever that might be, would be able to access in some way, shape, or form the river and enjoy those natural features. Access to the site is proposed in 2 different locations, off of 103rd and off of Great Cloud Trail, as you can see, but I'll focus on 103rd. The county completed in 2020 the Southwest Arterial Study, in which they evaluated the best improvements needed to provide access from Highway 61 all the way to Great Cloud Island. Planning for their future regional park on the island, they wanted to make sure that they were planning ahead, acquiring the right-of-way, and making those improvements when possible. Excuse me. So as a part of this project, 103rd Street will be realigned at the corner. Right now it is a T, if you're familiar. That 103rd Street will be more of a curve. So that work will be completed as a part of this development. And I also wanted to touch on the pedestrian access and that connectivity throughout this site. As you can see, so the yellow is sidewalks and the red are trails. And then we also show the trails down in the newly acquired park and open space. So that connectivity for pedestrian activity all the way through the site from 103rd down to the park and open space will be completed and connected as a part of this development. As with all of our developments in the community, we do require a tree inventory be completed. This particular project obviously is a massive and large site, and so that inventory was completed and identified. The project as a whole is preserving just about nearly half of what we consider to be the qualifying inches on the site as a part of their project. I really want to focus on the park and open space that's being preserved. That 19.91 acres that the city purchased from the county also has a, excuse me, a conservation easement over that. The county recognized the value of preserving the natural and unique features within that area, and so that conservation easement really restricts the improvements that can be made on that 19.9 acres. I think it goes as far to say as we can't remove a tree on those acres. So that entire area, excuse me, will be preserved. In addition, all of the trees on, again, the triangle piece will be preserved as the property owner continues to negotiate and navigate towards the sale of those 35 acres to the DNR. So instead of development on that particular site, the property owner is planning to preserve that area. As a part of the Settlers Bluff development, or capstone just at the top of the hill, they did extend the water main portion of the way down 103rd Street. So this particular development will be able to make that connection and run that water main down the hill to serve this property. The sanitary sewer, on the other hand, is a different animal. I don't know if you know this, but the elevation sits just a little bit lower at the bottom of the hill, so that sanitary sewer will require a permanent lift station to pump the sanitary sewer back up the hill and connect into the sanitary trunk. And I told you I was going to talk more about stormwater early on, and so here's where it comes. So with all developments, just as kind of a tree inventory, we do require that the developer design a stormwater maintenance system that complies with not only the city, but the watershed, and other agency regulations to control and treat stormwater. So there's three different components, and I'm going to talk about rate and volume control together, and then I'm going to talk about water quality kind of together. But in an undeveloped scenario, water kind of just moves throughout the site and then exits the site however it wants to. But in a developed scenario, water is managed and controlled through pond systems or the stormwater system. Right? And so then the water quality portion of it, so as that storm system captures that water, it uses the basins to not only catch the water, but also catch the runoff from the streets, driveways, sidewalks, things of that nature. It can be anything from salt, sand. All of those particulates end up in those basins, and then, of course, it's treated. So it helps to filter that water as it goes into the city storm sewer system, and then, of course, hopefully exits the site cleanly. Discharging, that's the term I forgot. Discharging out of the city's system. So as all of those components come together, you can see on the screen, the applicant or the developer is proposing somewhere around 10 basins on this site to capture that water, filter it before it not only goes into some of the wetlands nearby, but before it also discharges towards the Mississippi River. So I wanted to kind of give that general overview to make very clear, as a part of development, they are required to meet those minimum standards as they create a storm sewer system on site to treat that water before it's leaving. And finally, I promise we are nearing the end. I'm just going to touch on the home styles that are proposed because I think it's very important to capitalize on the fact that Rachel Development has really placed a huge effort on ensuring to provide a diversity of housing within this development. Capstone Homes proposing their same product as you see, as I mentioned, in Settlers Bluff. And then we have M&I Homes who are proposing several different product types across the 52.5-foot wide lots. And also a custom home builder to be determined, we've asked several times, but he won't disclose, on those 65-foot lots that are adjacent to that park area. So again, really meeting the council's strategic goals and visions to continue to provide a diverse amount of housing within the community, specifically providing that opportunity for folks adjacent to the Mississippi River. Definitely a unique opportunity that we have here in Cottage Grove. So with that, now that I've given you the story plus some, I know this is the recommendation. However, I am going to turn it over to the developer and his team, and they're going to give you just a little bit more detail into the particular project, as well as some of the environmental work that's been done to this point. So I'll turn it over to Paul Robinson with Rachel Development.
We had a technical snafu earlier, so I have to use my laptop here. Hopefully this, let's see. Well, there we go. All right. Good evening, Chairman, Planning Commissioners, Paul Robinson. I'm the Development Director for Rachel Development. Some may know us from across town. We do development all through the Twin Cities. We've been around for about 10 years, done about 95 projects, have developed about 5,800 housing units. I'm kind of jumping ahead of my slide here. That consists of single family, but also we have a memory care facility, and we also do apartments. So we kind of run the gamut of housing. Previously, I've been working for Rachel Development for almost 3 years. Prior to that, I worked for the Bancorp Group for about 19 years, so I've been developing for over 20 years. As a part of the Bancorp Group, we developed Eastbrook, which is a community here in the north part of Cottage Grove. And a lot of the principles of Eastbrook, I think we're trying to bring here in the plan that we're, I will say, tweaking and amending that Pulte started. So tonight, I'm just going to give a refresher, a little background on the property, try not to duplicate what Emily just went through. Do review and compare our plan to the previous plat, and give some examples of the home types, much like what Emily did, but a little quicker there. I'll do that, and then touch on some theming and amenities, summary of our flexibilities, and then I'm going to have Melissa Barrett from Kellogg Environmental come up and talk through the environmental work that we've done since the EAW was completed. And I think a lot of people here tonight really want to understand what we've done. And so, just really quickly, there's a lot of acreages you've seen, and Emily went through it as well, but this is just acreages based on the Washington County GIS. So the property that David Gustafson purchased from, when he purchased the golf course, and prior, the properties he owned was about 200 acres. Again, he has an option agreement with the DNR to purchase about 47.5 of those acres. The city, as you heard, purchased 19.7. David dedicated 9.6. And then what that left is the 123.7 acres. That's the subject of tonight. That's what's in our pre-plat. And we're dedicating 4 acres, as Emily mentioned, to make up for the remainder of the park dedication requirement, and leaving around 120 acres net that's being developed. And what this left and what this will leave is 45 acres, all the shoreline, and 45 acres along the river in public domain, which I think is quite a bit. And it's, even if you add in the 35 acres from the remainder that the DNR is purchasing, 40% of this total site is going into the public domain. We look at the topography of the site when we first start developing a site or analyzing a site. What I'm showing now is the lower elevations of the site, so eventually all the water ends up in the Mississippi River through these lower elevations. As you see, the site building, it kind of comes up from each side of the river, and then eventually the higher elevations, these are 10-foot contours, makes up that middle part, the red and purple area, where the vast majority of the development is occurring. We also look at the natural drainage patterns. What I mentioned wrong when I did this concept review with the council is that most of the drainage actually goes to the north. And you'll see it comes off of that plateau, off the north side of the property, and goes into that wetland drainage way and to the northwest. And then the south comes off of that plateau and into the river. The existing watersheds look like this. So that green area all drains to the north, and this blue area and this red area drain into the south and southwest. We then look at the wetlands on the site. Pulte had done a wetland delineation, which was still accurate, so we used and put those wetlands on the site. We also, at this time, often look at where we would treat stormwater. I'm going to just show you the ponds that Emily showed you that are on the site. But you can see it starts to make sense how to treat the water before it leaves the site and gets into the existing drainage way. So we also looked at the soils. We did a lot of analysis on this site, more than I've ever done on any site, actually. We have Braun Intertech is our soil scientist on this site. We did that for 2 reasons. One, there's some shallow bedrock areas that we need to work through for utility installation and for the types of homes that work best in those areas. But the vast majority of our site is SP or SPSM sand and is generally quite suitable for housing. I know there's been some comments that it's not, but generally when we see a sand site, it's usually much easier to work on, and it's very acceptable for homes. And we will obviously have our soil scientists on site ensuring 98% compaction and all the things that you need to be able to support a home. And then we put that mess together and try to lay out a site. So the goals that we had when we took this site over were to create a high-quality neighborhood that was connected to the river and to the open spaces adjacent to it, that provided a variety of homes at a variety of price points, trying to, keeping those trail connections, keeping the open spaces and wetlands, and then one, most importantly, that's financially viable, which is why the last plan didn't probably proceed, and partly the market and partly just trying to create the right mix. So we've created what is really 3 neighborhoods within this one. So the 40-foot detached townhomes, those 52.5 single family, and the 65-foot, what I'll call river neighborhood. If you look just at the 2 plans, so this is the previous plan that was approved, so the preliminary plat that was approved, and now our amended preliminary plat. For the most part, I think, and I wish I would have colored this in, but the buildable area, the amount of area that's being disturbed is the same. And so we've done some tweaking, and we think we've made the plan better, but we really stayed within the same basic footprint that was approved previously. One of the biggest changes was the last plan had some twin homes and condos, and then had these 50-foot lots along the edge, so about 163 units. We took and spread that same sort of mix, about 183 lots, into those detached townhome area. And these are the same, this is basically what Emily mentioned, these are the capstone coming down from Settlers Bluff basically into this phase of the development. The previous plan had kind of a section of 60s and then some larger 60s that were all on the west side. We kept that single family on the west, but made those slightly smaller, and then moved all of the larger lots all along the river. So closer to the amenity, closer to where we can gain maybe some more value out of the neighborhood and provide for a housing that isn't actually as prevalent in this part of the city. When you look at the total units, the previous plan had 372, we have 377, so 5 more, but basically within the same range. If you recall, the EAW threshold, that was, the EAW planned and was developed for 499 units. So we're well below that threshold. And then I'll just show one of the changes that we made. One of the biggest changes was taking the ponding from kind of all around the outside perimeter and then moving it into the site to create a little bit more open space and amenity within the neighborhood and not just a cluster of homes in the middle. And so I think we believe that was a good change, and it was well received by our builders. So again, one of the biggest change was just this condo townhome area, which had about 60 units, now has 23. And then the changes along the river, where we had previously these 60 and 50-foot lots, now 65-foot lots. We took the ponding that was along the river and moved it to the back. We added more ponding, added more open space, so we could create a landscape buffer to sort of create a more unique area there along the river. I'm gonna just go through the 3 neighborhood products. So again, capstone coming down the hill, same pictures that Emily showed, but they're looking at these homes starting in the low to mid 400s. I would say these are the starter homes in the neighborhood. Never used to be starter homes, they are now. This is a streetscape. MI is actually taking the 52.5-foot lots and creating 2 different product types in there. They're gonna be doing a two-story smart series and a single level villa. And so the Smart Series, again, looks like a traditional 2-story home. These, I would say, a little bit higher end than the capstone homes, but still, within that affordable range. They're in the mid 400s up to the low 500s. This is kind of an example of the streetscape. And then the single family villas are more of an empty nester product. So we're trying to, at least with single family homes, create some life cycle housing here. These start in the high 400s into the low 500s. And then finally, that's the streetscape. The 65-foot lots really are that move-up single-family custom home builders that I'm never going to tell you who they are, evidently. No, but we have actually more interest than we can take builders, and so we're in a position where we're trying to pick the best combination that can play in a sandbox together for that area. We're looking at just theming in the entrances and around the site, using some of the limestone on site and using some limestone from the area. I would call this theming, we're trying to base it more like a national park. We're part of, the River National Park. This monument actually was designed after Zion National Park. So I think it's gonna have a really nice feel when you come into the site. The trails and sidewalks, I mixed the colors up. I guess sidewalk should have been yellow. When people go around the neighborhood, there's over 3 miles of trails and sidewalks to connect the neighborhood, and then eventually another mile and a half of trails in the city park. So this will be, I think, a great amenity, not just for the neighborhood, but for the city as a whole. There's a number of flexibilities. They're in my narrative. I think Emily sounds like she may be going through those as well. The ones for the 40-foot lots are very similar to what you approved with the PUD for Settlers Bluff, and the ones for the rest of the neighborhood are very similar to what you had previously in the PUD. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Melissa Barrett to go through the sort of environmental portion and the response to the EAW. I won't leave you.
Thank you.
I found it easier just to use the arrow.
Okay. Oh, wow. All right. Okay. Hi. My name is Melissa Barrett. I'm with Kellogg Environmental Services. Real quickly, I've been an environmental consultant for 20 years with Kellogg Environmental, and I've never done one of these before. So this is all new to me. So bear with me if I repeat myself or get a little off track. I'll try not to do that. One of my main jobs at Kellogg Environmental Services is to basically help clients work through the various type of environmental regulations that apply to their projects. So we do a lot of wetland consulting, and I've been dealing with rare species a lot.
Sorry, we're not hearing you.
Okay, my husband would say I'm a soft talker, so speak up. Let's try this. All right, so I'm pretty sure, as most of you are aware, with the EAW, there were a number of environmental comments, and the main one was the NHIS letter from the DNR that was included as an appendix in the EAW. And it identified a number of, I guess, potential environmental concerns on the site. I actually started working on this project with Pulte Homes back in 2022, right after the record of decision was issued, and they were beginning to kind of pick through the comments that were made and try to start working on all of the to-do items after the EAW was approved. The NHIS letter indicated that there were a number of occurrences of rare species within a 1 mile vicinity of the project area. This table here basically summarizes the NHIS letter into the various occurrences within the area. There was the federally endangered rusty patch bumblebee. There were 2 state endangered bird species. There were 2 threatened plant species. There were, I think, 6 special concern species, and they talked about various mussel species. They didn't really elaborate on which ones were in the area. So I was going to go through the mussels first. The NHIS letter stated that if the project were to impact the water quality of the river, then a mussel survey would be needed. And we evaluated this, and we are not doing that survey. It doesn't need to be done. That concern of impacting the water quality of the river is addressed by the erosion control plan that the engineer prepares as the site goes through the permitting process, and also with the stormwater pollution prevention plan, namely the stormwater basins, the infiltration basins, the erosion control, the silt fence that goes up. So the mussel survey doesn't need to be done for this project. Of the 4 listed state bird species, 2 are threatened, and there are 2 of special concern.
No bird surveys have been done. They're not going to be done. As long as the developer adheres to avoiding tree and shrub clearing from April 1st through April 15th, those surveys are not needed. I'm sorry, August. Of the two, there were two other special concern species on the site. One is a snake, and the other is the Leonard skipper. It's a small butterfly. There was a recommendation from the DNR to use biodegradable erosion control blanket, and the developer has added that to the plans. A survey will not be required for these species either. They are special concern, and we verified that surveys for these would not be needed with the DNR, and I'll kind of go into that a little later with our report from Midwest Natural Resources, which I'll be talking about shortly. So to address the two endangered state-listed species, which are Seaside 3-on and the Louisiana broom rape, the two special concern species are hills thistle and purple sandgrass. And the DNR letter specifically said that a qualified surveyor would need to conduct a habitat assessment in any undisturbed areas impacted by the proposed project. If potential habitat for these species is documented and those areas cannot be avoided, a botanical survey will be needed. We varied from this a little in that we contracted Midwest Natural Resources, MNR as I'll refer to them. We asked them to just survey the whole site. We didn't ask them to only survey parts of the site. Their task was to just go out and see what they could find anywhere on the site. Within the golf course project, the private properties that were on the west side of the project, we didn't have them survey anything on the east side of the railroad tracks. We knew that was off limits for the project, but everything to the west of the railroad tracks within the project area, we said, go see what you can find anywhere. And MNR is, when we send them out to look for species, they know that there's the potential for these out there, but if they see anything else, they have to report it. They don't put their blinders on. So they do a whole plant list, what they've observed on the site. So go out, see what they can find. MNR is, they're on the DNR's list of qualified surveyors. If you're going to do a rare plant survey, you have to be on the approved DNR's list so that they know qualified people are out there doing that. And before they go out, they verify their methods and their protocol and their timing so that they know that their survey will be accepted by the DNR later. And so that's what they did. We sent MNR out there. Let's see. So of the two endangered species that have been known to occur in this area, they did find Seaside 3-on. They found it in the very southeast part of the project, the site boundary, but outside of the project area. And if you can kind of see, it's the little blue hatched areas there. That's where the Seaside 3-on populations were. They did not find the Louisiana broom rape, and they did not find the other two special concern species on the site. Okay, in addition to the DNR letter, in addition to the known occurrences of rare plant species, it referred to that there are some mapped sites of biodiversity significance on this site, right? So what that means is there's a database for DNR. These are publicly known polygons. You can go online and check them out. And so the letter notified the applicant in the EAW process that there are sites of biodiversity significance out there. The dark green is high quality. The lighter green was moderate quality. And that purple one up in the top is below quality. The letter didn't talk about the native, no, that's true. The DNR letter did talk about the potential for the dry Barrens Prairie to be on the site. So there's the sites of biodiversity significance, and then there's native plant communities. They kind of overlap on each other. They're kind of similar but different. And so on this map, the yellow is the native plant community map from the DNR. And so when MNR was hired, we told them not just to go out to look for plant species, we also said we want you to check, map the site for any native plant communities. And MNR pulls this information so they kind of have an idea of what might be out there when they go out there and where, but they just go out and they, again, map the existing conditions as they are current and present today. And so, I'm not sure if I told you this, the yellow is the dry Barrens Prairie that's mapped by the DNR, and then the red was a pin oak, bur oak woodland. I'm getting goofed up because there's the slide ahead, and then there's the slide I'm on. All right, and so this is pretty much the result. Oh, I'm sorry, the survey was done in 2022.
No, the one before, the biological.
Oh, right, that's true. The mapped sites of biodiversity significance are from a DNR database. Those polygons, when you can go into them and see when the observations were made, and those were in 1987. So this site was mapped before the golf course was developed. And that's why we're gonna find different existing conditions today. So this figure here basically summarizes the existing conditions as they are now, which MNR found out there. We have the rare plant communities and the little blue blobs in the southeast part. They did find one native plant community remnant, that's the NPC1, kind of in the central part of the golf course. It's about 17.17 acres of dry Barrens Prairie. They classified that as dry Barrens Prairie, like was supposed to be out there, not as large, obviously, and had a condition rank of D. And if you're curious later, I can read that to you. A is high, good, very nice quality. D is on the lower end. It's the lowest of ends. So the larger prairie that was mapped in 87 is no longer present. They found another dry Barrens Prairie remnant in the very southeast part of the site, surrounding those rare species, which makes sense. This is kind of the least altered part of the golf course, it appears when you look at historical aerial photos. That one had a condition rank of BC. That is outside of the project boundary. And then they didn't find the pin oak, bur oak woodland, as you saw it on the previous figure. What they found instead was a sugar maple basswood forest, and that had a condition rank of C or CD. And so MNR's survey report was submitted to the DNR for approval, and the DNR issued an email response. That's kind of how they approve things, on October 11th of 2022. And the summary was that the DNR confirmed approval of the survey report dated August 14th. They concurred with the MNR findings, and they stated that a take permit is not needed. That means they acknowledge that the rare plants are out there, but that the proposed project is not expected to impact those rare species, and so a take permit is not needed. So that's kind of how that works, the language and what they're inferring with that language. Oh, yes, that's true. In October of last year, when the project kind of picked up again, we requested an updated NHIS letter from the DNR. So the first letter was, 2021? Those are usually good for about 1 year. So we requested an updated letter. I provided the DNR with the studies we had done so that they were aware of them. And we have received this updated NHIS letter. And the summary from that letter is that I, meaning Molly, the DNR staff person, do not believe that the proposed project will negatively affect any known occurrences of rare species, or rare features. So again, they all kind of say the different staffs come at it a little differently, but again, there's no further work needed. There were no new native plant communities listed in the new NHIS letter, no new sites of biodiversity significance, no new rare plant occurrences within a 1-mile vicinity. Nothing changed from the old letter to the new letter, except the fact that they acknowledged that we had done some work in the interim. They did not request any additional surveys. There are no rare species permits needed for the project, as long as the development project adheres to avoidance measures. One of them being that the remnant dry berry prairienes in the southeast part of the site does truly become, part of the SNA in the future, that's not developed. That tree and shrub clearing is avoided from April 1st through August 15th. The erosion control netting, that's wildlife friendly for the snakes, and they recommended that seed mixes be native seed mixes when they revegetate the open space areas. And then the other item that was on the very first NHIS letter, and I can't really remember if it was on the second one, was the federally endangered rusty patch bumblebee. It's on the NHIS letter from the DNR because they have a cooperative agreement with the Fish and Wildlife Service that they will always kind of look over those things. So this letter here is dated December 11th, 2023, end of last year. Again, when the project picked up, I started working on the rare species items again, and I submitted what is called this IPAC assessment. It's like an online tool through the federal government to assess what federally protected species might be on your site and to determine if there's going to be an effect to them. They didn't have this tool during the Pulte timeframe. It's kind of a new tool. So I didn't do this tool before. What I did before when I was working for Pulte is I just directly coordinated with Fish and Wildlife Service with regards to the rusty patch bumblebee. So I'm going to kind of be overlapping my time periods here for you. But this is to give you a kind of a nice idea of what the printout looks like if you were to do it today. So northern long-eared bat, it's like a worksheet, and you answer the questions. Northern long-eared bat, no effect. Higgins eye mussel, no effect. Monarch butterfly, no effect. Tricolored bat, no effect, and whooping crane. So, or not likely to adversely affect. That's what the NLAA means. So then we have the rusty patch bumblebee, may affect, which makes sense because when you do the worksheet, you put your site boundary in there, and this site is in the high potential zone for the rusty patch bumblebee. And any site that is in the high potential zone, you should just presume that the bumblebee is there for evaluating this factor. And what we did before, back in 2022, when Pulte was around, is before this worksheet was, the rusty patch bumblebee was kind of a new thing then, and so we were just all kind of working through it. But Resource Environmental Solutions was hired to do a habitat assessment on the site for rusty patch bumblebee. RES is, there used to be Applied Ecological Services, AES, and then they were bought by a nationwide company, so they're RES. And some people refer to them as RES, so I'd probably call them that terminology as well. So RES did a study, and they did conclude that there were no habitats with, all the habitats that they mapped were of low suitability for the rusty patch bumblebee. And I'm going to read something else, because the terminology is like very garbled and it's hard to understand. But this is what their habitat assessment report looked like. They completed it, and it was provided to Fish and Wildlife Service along with some more summary information from me. So I guess there's all the communities that they mapped on the site. And there's all they called them location type habitats, and they specifically defined each one of them. And all of the red locations were of low suitability for the rusty patch bumblebee. And they found one that had potential suitable habitat for the rusty patch bumblebee. And of course, that area corresponds to where the rare plants are. That area corresponds to where the remnant dry barrens prairie is, so that all makes perfectly good sense. Everybody's kind of information is corresponding to one another. And so this is what was submitted to Fish and Wildlife Service to specifically for coordination with them. And we asked them to confirm that the proposed project is not likely to jeopardize the continued existence of the rusty patch bumblebee. Because that's the real question, is will we jeopardize the continued existence of the bumblebee? And from that, we did get a response from the Fish and Wildlife Service in May of 2022, where we were told that the negative impacts to the species are unlikely, given the previous land use, and that areas considered suitable habitat for the rusty patch bumblebee, again, that southeast corner, per the habitat assessment that we submitted, will be protected through the expansion of the adjacent SNA. And that was their, final approval of our memo and their determination. And that's that.
Sorry, this is a complicated thing. A few more slides and we're done. So, basically, our plans today include native species plantings in all the area that's red, or at least in the areas of the upland that are disturbed, in the areas that are red. So much like we were recommended to do, much like we would do typically, all of those wetland buffers and stuff will be planted with native prairie. In addition to this, there's been a lot of discussion about the archaeological. There was an archaeological phase 1 done. I didn't bring our archaeological consultant. I don't think you had another 10 minutes or 12 to go. But that's a 58-page document. They did a complete analysis, a very in-depth historical analysis, understanding, and there's a list and a table in there that shows where the kiln is and and the cultural resources that are in and around this site, which are many. But they also did field investigation all across the site and did not find, and the outcome of that was that no archaeological resources were identified on this site. There was no additional investigation warranted after their initial phase 1. And they did put together an inadvertent discovery plan, which we are updating right now because it was in Pulte's name. We're updating it in our name. And basically, that's a plan that is put into place. We'll provide it to SHPO. If we run into any type of artifact, we stop work and we bring in the different agencies to consult. So the State Historic Preservation Office, Bureau of Indian Affairs, others will come in to coordinate. And that is the end. So.
Thank you very much. We're going to start with questions for staff. So are there any questions for Emily from the commission? Well, Emily, I guess I'll start with a question while everyone's kind of thinking. So you talked at the beginning of your presentation about the fact that this property was a tilled field, an agricultural field, and then at some point in the 90s, it went through mass site grading, I think was the term you used. Can you describe, just based on your experience, what does mass site grading entail?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I mean, generally speaking, the entirety of the site was graded in some way, shape, or form. My engineering friends are kind of giving me the eye right now because I'm going to give you the planner version. But ultimately, the majority or the entirety of the site was disturbed as a part of that work.
Can I piggyback off of that?
Commissioner Fisher.
Were any of these environmental studies, any of the in-depth analysis done when it was turned from a tilled field into a golf course? Are there any records of any of these types of things happening then?
Right. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher, not that we're aware of or that we could find in our documents.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff? All right, at this time, how about questions for the applicant? Commissioner Bob.
Yeah. So this is, during your presentation, you had shown a response from Department of the Interior. And we did receive this email from I believe, resident of the city. And it seems to be contradicting with what you showed. So I was wondering, why is there a contradiction there?
Can you show me what you're looking at?
So this is the, from the Department of the Interior. You got a email or a response, I suppose, which listed the status of the endangered species. Yeah, the very first one.
But what's he looking at?
I think I know what one
Oh,
it
he's
is.
looking at the NHIS.
I think I know what
We
it is.
provided, and then
Is it this one?
It's from the Department of the Interior,
But does it?
Fish and Wildlife Service. Yeah, that's the one.
the one,
So there were two letters.
This is from Scott.
this is, but he has the one that's from
The January 20th?
submittal from Chris.
Is yours dated January 20, 2024?
Yes,
Yeah, I have that one. It was
Okay.
provided to Paul, I think, before the meeting.
yeah. So if you look at the January 20th,
Oh,
I
is
thought
this
this
from?
question would come up.
Oh, that's from the gentleman that,
Yep.
that made a comment.
yes.
That's not from us.
Yep.
It is not, but if you look at the comment or the determination, it's contradicting.
Yep,
In one
it
case,
is. And I would say that the reason why it is contradictory is because, and I thank that person for highlighting these things, number 10 of their form and number 10 of mine would be different. I'll read that out loud. So it says, does your project have the potential to impact the riparian zone or indirectly impact a stream or river through cut and fill, horizontal directional drilling, construction, vegetation removal, pesticide or fertilizer application, discharge, runoff of sediments or pollutants, increase in erosion? And if the stormwater prevention plan is followed, if erosion control measures are followed, those things will not occur. The applicant would not be given a permit for his project from the city or the watershed district if they thought those things were gonna occur according to the plan. So I would say I would not have chosen yes for that answer. I've chosen no for that answer in my assessment. And then, number 11, he picked, will your action disturb existing ground or vegetation? I said yes to that one as well. And I guess that's the one that really makes it may affect for the mussels, the clams, and the river. I can see why if I do these a lot, I do a lot of projects every year, and so I kind of know what they're asking here. And although the site does have construction, I don't believe that construction activity is going to lead to sedimentation, because I know that there's a stormwater prevention plan.
So Ms. Barrett, maybe while you're up there, I'll just ask you this too. So it sounds like this, it sounds like you talked about this, we're talking about this January 20th, 24 letter. This is now a worksheet you can complete online with the Department of the Interior.
Yes, exactly.
So any of us here sitting in the audience could go on, put in these same coordinates, answer the questions ourselves.
Yep, exactly.
All right. And so then print them off and submit them.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Question for Commissioner Stevens. Ms. Barry, you might just want to hang out there for a second.
Sorry. So I think you mentioned this letter from the Department of Natural Resources. I'm wondering if you can just explain, so when I read through this, it does say, I do not believe the proposed project will negatively affect any known occurrences. But then it says below is a list of rare features addressed in the previous Natural Heritage Review, coupled with agreed upon project avoidance measures. But then when you read that right away, it says, Gray Cloud Dunes East, outstanding. Cottage Grove 29, moderate. Can you
Right.
just explain what
Yeah,
that's discussing?
If you looked, so the NHIS letter is your request for them to query their database to see if there's anything there. And when they did the NHIS request for the EAW, they queried their database and they're like, there's this, 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 this. And so when they queried it again, it's all the same. There's this, 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 this. There were no additional things. So if you compare the first NHIS letter that's in the EAW to this one, all the same occurrences happen. And instead of that saying there may be the first NHIS letter said, if you're gonna impact something, you may need to do a survey. If you're gonna do this, you should do a survey. They didn't say any of that in this letter, right? Well, they said it for the mussels again.
Yeah.
Right? They repeated that, but they didn't talk about, doing the bird surveys. They didn't talk about doing the rare plant surveys, because we had already done it. They didn't talk about doing like a native plant community assessment, because we'd already done it. So that's where the difference in the letters is.
Okay, so when it says, like, coupled with the agreed upon project avoidance measures.
Which is very
there are
spec-
none, because you've already done them all, so they're just pointing them out.
Well, the avoidance measures, what they're really specifically referring to would be the tree clearing. That is, the applicant has to adhere to that, or they will be, like, in conflict with this letter. The erosion control netting is a recommendation, but they're doing that. The native plantings recommendation, they're doing that. So you have to kind of read their language, like the mays, the recommend, the suggests, or you must avoid this tree clearing.
Okay,
It's kind of this subtle language there. Yeah,
thank you.
okay.
Any further questions for the applicant?
Thinking.
Commissioner Botten?
So this is a very general question. So you're going ahead with the proposal of 377 built units, right? Is that required for the financial viability? Is that a number that you would like to achieve? Or if there is any revisions and if you're asked to reduce the number of units, would that be still financially viable? Or have you considered this more deeply?
I'd just say what we're proposing is what we need to make this project work.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay. Well, I'll say this. I guess the next step would be to open public hearing. It is almost 8:30, so I guess I would take my direction from rest of commission. If they'd like to take a break now, or if we should start with public comment. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Good? Okay. All right, so then at this time, we will open public comment on this application. If you wish to speak for or against the application, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Again, you will get 3 minutes. Every single person will get 3 minutes if they'd like to speak. There will be a bell at the end of 3 minutes. I'd ask you finish the sentence you're on and then sit down. There are a lot of you here today, obviously. We don't want to be here till tomorrow. So if you're repeating something that somebody else has said, obviously you're more than welcome to do that. But we are sitting here, we're listening to everything that's being said, and we're also going to be taking notes as well as staff taking notes on everything you're saying. So with that, first person who would like to step up, it looks like we do have a sign-up sheet. So Emily, I guess am I calling people then? Sure, so we'll start on the top of the list. I've got Eric Dahmer.
I would sign up first, right? It's been a long time since I did this. Let's see. Chairman, Commissioners, my name's Eric Dahmer, 8440 Harkness Road South, Cottage Grove. I rise in opposition to the proposed development. I believe in preserving that which was best in a community, preserving it for those who come after us, right? Now, the arguments that are going to develop here are not arguments that haven't been done before for generations, right? 100 years ago, there was a battle in Minnesota. On one side, there's powerful industrial interests led by a gentleman named Edward Backus. Their plan was to construct a series of dams on the Rainy River watershed. And they were going to control the water flow through Backus's hydroelectric dam in International Falls. Now, he promised great things. There was going to be great benefits to the community. There was going to be improvements to the natural environment by these huge impoundment lakes and stuff like that. And their side had money and political influence on their side. On the other side was an ad hoc group led by an Ivy League educated, self-taught naturalist named Ernest Oberhauser. And what they had was a powerful vision. And that vision was that you preserve places in a state of nature so people can, in that generation and future generations, can connect with the land and rejuvenate and renew their souls and their spirits. Now, we know that Oberhauser's side won that battle, right? But what if it had been a little different on the other side of one? Today, we'd be questioning the judgment of the leadership of that era, as we'd be facing the huge task of tearing down those dams and rehabilitating those lost waterfalls and river rapids and thousands of islands that have been drowned under those lakes. That land was the land that became the BWCA, the jewel of northern Minnesota. That land was land that Backus claimed was of no particular value to even be considered. Now, what are people going to think about this little argument going on here 100 years from now? Are they going to thank us for another nondescript housing development lost on a sea of nondescript housing developments? Or instead, will they appreciate us for having the vision to preserve what was best in our community and leave them accessible, open places to easily experience the waters of the Mississippi River and to be in nature and to renew their spirits? We ask that you have the vision to create a work as worthy of the canvas you've been provided with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Damer, and apologize for stating your name wrong. Next on my list is Kelly Reddington, and if I pronounce your name incorrectly, I apologize ahead of time.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Reddington, and I live at 6720 Meadowgrass Lane in Cottage Grove. And I'm here to express my opposition to this development, proposed development of the 377 on the former Mississippi Dunes property. I have much of the same concerns as the man who spoke to me previously. This property has the potential to be rare and unique, not only to this state, this nation, but globally. Today, less than 1% of the dry prairie habitat remains and has been recommended by DNR. The habitat as rare as this be prioritized for preservation. Also, the land immediately adjacent to this property is the scientific and natural area, which already provides habitat for several state and federally listed endangered threatened species. And it's likely that this property has high potential to provide biological diversity as well. This is also an area that's the important bird area and is an international significance for the conservation of migratory birds in the Mississippi Flyway. I do understand the balance that growing communities have for housing, but I also think that there are other areas that have been altered more that would provide better development and are more suitable for the development that is being proposed. I would like to see Cottage Grove be a role model in thinking for the future, not just now, not just a decade from now, but 2-3 generations ahead, and not by sacrificing too much for housing, increased property, taxes, and increased tax base, but to be known as a model city that recognizes what a rarity we have in this property and the opportunity that we have to do something different and protect this land and all that goes with it as it should be protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Britton.
Thank you for inviting us to speak today. My name is Karen Britton, and I live at 8236 113th Street. So I'm in walking distance of the Mississippi, but I don't have any access because all of it is private in our neighborhood. I think my big concern is I used to volunteer a lot for like the West Draw Project, a lot of the task force, and the comprehensive plan was really clear that the Mississippi was our jewel. We wanted to have access for our people going forward as best as possible. And it seems like this might be the only opportunity to secure this land by the Mississippi. And we'd really like to set Cottage Grove apart from other of the suburban areas where we're seen as a bedroom community, urban sprawl. Let's see if this is our one opportunity to change that. The other concerned about the viability without city money and county money. In my neighborhood, we were very fortunate to get the water brought in, and when we asked about sewer, we were told it was way too expensive to put a lift station, and it'd be a huge tax burden for us. So I'm wondering why the city has decided to subsidize this housing development where they don't subsidize other community members. And I'm wondering if the people in that area are going to be forced to join up with sewer and water, and will that be a huge burden for those communities down there? Also wondering about flood insurance. I have to think that's will the city be burdened with higher costs for insurance for the roads and the areas in the area? As we know, there's been floods in our area. Below me, we've had flooding. So what's going to be the ongoing cost of that? I love the SNA area. I hike there a lot. It's already getting crowded by that new development. And will this have, even though that's protected, will this add more burden and strain on that very beautiful area? So I guess that's my plea, that we really look long-term, as the other people said more eloquent to me, that this is a unique time. And is it worth all the costs that the state and the county, when we know there could be other options out there? So thank you.
Thank you. Dave Olson.
Good evening. I'm Dave Olson, citizen of Cottage Grove. I live at 8627 Jorgensen Avenue South. Chair and commission members, thank you for the opportunity to share my perspective on this application before you tonight. I understand that your job is to make sure it complies with all of the codes and ordinances in our city. And I'm pretty confident that our city staff wouldn't have it in front of you today if it didn't. So I'm pretty sure I know how this vote's going to go, and I understand why it needs to go that way. I also want to thank each and every one of you for doing this hard work on behalf of the rest of us that live in Cottage Grove, so thank you very much. Councilmember Kumbata, you can see, I think, and you're going to hear that there's a whole lot of dedicated citizens that are concerned and motivated to try to prevent this project from happening. And I would only ask that you share that with your fellow council members and the mayor when it comes time for this to go through on the consent agenda. Landowner, I hear a rumor that you really don't want houses here. So slow down. I think there might be another way. There's a lot of people trying to find another way. And Rachel, well, I listened to you all, so I have to change what I was going to say because I'm very impressed with your due diligence. Very impressed. Thank you for doing that. The thing is, we just don't want you to ruin this land with houses, and we think that's what it will be, is ruined. And you actually hold the cards right now, so please, just stop. Let's not do this. See if the volunteers can generate enough money to satisfy the landowner's need for compensation on their investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Grams.
Good evening. I guess this is a speaker. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold I'm trying to get over here. But my name is Christine Grams. I live at 10655 Gray Cloud Trail, which is just 2 doors down from the future Mississippi Landing. As a resident here, I can tell you that the land is very poor for growing much of anything. I can also tell you the soil is so sandy that we are constantly fighting soil erosion, even though the property's been, we don't have anything that's happened, where we've, no recent building, I should say. Anyway, you can't just buy grass from Menards and expect it to grow here without wasting lots of water and fertilizer, which further pollute the river, which I imagine is going to happen with these homes as well. Dunes only comprise 5% of land in Minnesota, and Minnesota has no official guidelines for building homes on dunes. If you research, there are many problems with building on dunes. The biggest problems arise when the vast clearing of acres of trees and vegetation are bulldozed, which is also the quickest and cheapest and most preferred way to build. Problems including cracked foundations that are currently being experienced by the housing development just up the hill from the dunes. Those houses are roughly about a year old. I'm concerned about plans to relocate the spring on the property and the issues that arise. The only state that has come up with a successful plan for building on dunes is Michigan State. Despite all of this property's value is actually priceless when you assess the varied and endangered wildlife this land supports. This value is irreplaceable. Everyone I speak to is against this land being developed. The first reaction is that building here would destroy all the beauty of why you would want to build here in the first place. 2 years ago, I was part of collecting over 2,000 names against development. Already $6 million has been raised to purchase this property for natural parkland. There is also another $20 million that has been earmarked from the 3M settlement, specifically for land to be purchased in Southwest Washington County to restore and protect our aquifer, which would include Cottage Grove and would be ideal. I'm in no way against housing. There is obviously a shortage of homes and high demand. However, the argument here is that there are better places to build homes. There is a shortage of park spaces. As our population grows, state parks are booked a year out for space and camping. This land is a natural resource that would be very lucrative for tourism, which is also lacking on the river, despite an over 30-year-old plan from the county to develop park space on the river. Yet Cottage Grove only has a 1-acre park to service its 38,000 population. Yet we've been given a rare jewel in the habitat surrounding Great Cloud Island. You can literally spend all day kayaking around the island and not see all of it. Your residents very clearly want to park here, not homes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bonnie Matter.
Okay, Bonnie Matter, 6649 Inskip Avenue South. Thank you very much for providing this forum. I really, really appreciate it. You do a great job. I know the beating you take. I mean, seriously, so thank you. I hope you were given enough time prior to this meeting to review the 484 pages of material that were provided with the Rachel Development's plans for the Mississippi Dunes. For me, nothing has changed from the comments I have made over the last few years. The newest version of the plan only provides more reasons why this development should not move forward. I know I could talk for over an hour, and I'm not going to bore you with that. I changed the page, and I'm going to go back to this, to where my heart is with this. What I want to share with my 3 minutes of time is this. The city of Cottage Grove and its residents were given a precious gift, a crown jewel, an environmentally sensitive area to respect and protect. Mississippi Dunes is next to the Great Cloud Dunes Scientific and Natural Area, SNA. And over the years, the dunes and the SNA have protected each other and their inhabitants. This area sits on the Moores Lake backwater channel of the Mississippi River. Whenever I get a chance to visit that area, the feeling is as sacred as entering a cathedral, with its wide open blue skies, its rugged landscape, its beautiful foliage, and peaceful, quiet solitude. An area that's beautiful because of its natural state. What the city has failed to understand from the beginning is that this is not a city thing. This area has local, regional, state, national, and global significance. Respectfully, Rachel Development and Pulte Corporation. There are many other places where you can build. Please leave this area alone. You are treading on sacred ground. Some of the Mississippi River parcel significance, these are just a few examples. It's a globally significant flyway. More than 325 bird species use the Mississippi Flyway to move between breeding grounds in Canada and the northern U.S. to their southern wintering grounds. It's located in the Mississippi National River and Recreational Area. The water quality down there provides more than 50 U.S. cities, okay, with water for their daily water supply. There's many other things, but thank you very much for your time listening. And I have handouts, so I can give those to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Greg Berg.
My name is Gregory J. Berg, Jr. I live at 8594 Grenadier Avenue South. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so I'm out of my element. I was taking notes as my fellow citizens were speaking up here. I am a concerned citizen of Cottage Grove, Minnesota, United States, as well as the larger planet we live on. There are existing risks as well as potential risks in light of the 3M discussions that have been had and are being had, studies, etc. And there are studies that the conservation easement is not and will not be adequate. How can we promote stewardship of natural places for our future generations if we only allot a fraction of natural places for their benefit of knowledge? How far out are our future generations going to have to go to feel what nature has to offer? How far out? Because expansion's been happening all over the place. And I'd like for us to recall the old Camel's Hump natural and open area before it was swallowed up by development. The bats that jumped out at me, bats are suffering from white nose disease and their population is in this region would benefit from discretion in light of their diminished population. And don't we like having bats around to help with the mosquito problem? Something else jumped out at me as well. I wrote down previous land repurposing to diminish important species. When they built the golf course, from what I got out of the presentation, when they built the golf course, there was endangered species that were in a small area, and those basically got plowed over, if I understood the presentation correctly. And now, from what I can tell, there's a couple slivers or remnants of what was limited in the first place. And now, from what I'm hearing, the proposition is to plow them over with little discretion, because even if we have discretion in this room, who's going to be holding the would-be construction entity responsible? Where's their discretion and motive going to be? My appreciation is for nature. I have my daughter here, and I'm proud to say that I share my appreciation for nature with her. And that's why I'm proud to say that I got up here for my first time ever, because this is an important cause, if not the most important cause as we think forward. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you. Tyler Beeren.
Evening, Commission, Chair. To piggyback on what this last guy said, it's my first time here.
For the record, we do need them to state their name and address for the record.
I apologize.
Oh, yeah, so I'm Tyler Byron. I live at 6500 103rd Street South, which I'm the only property on 103rd Street, so you can't miss me. Me and Bailey's nursery there. But to piggyback what he said, he was saying that's the first time I've ever done this, so just bear with me. But so I've lived at 6500 since 2011, so about a decade or more. So every day from my property, I can see right across the golf course. And since it's been vacant, the natural beauty that's come from its closure, so nature has taken back this property, and it's been great to see. And so when you look at this 377 proposal, 377 homes, I think most of us in this room and others that aren't here tonight, when you stand at 130 and you look at that property, probably the first thing in your mind's not going to say, boy, that'd be a great place to put in 377 homes, right? It doesn't make sense. And my wife, in my opinion, from our point of view, perspective, it seems like there's a lot of other places to put this development. You have a unique piece of property there that nature has taken back, and it continues to take back every year. So I guess I'm opposed to this plan, and my wife's opposed to this plan on many different reasons, but that being the one. The second was, we searched all over for a property and a city to live in for a long time, and we finally found this property on 103rd, and we thought, wow, what a gem, right? What a something that hasn't been discovered yet, right? We have Great Cloud Trail, you have Great Cloud Island, you have the golf course, and it was great. It was privacy. We had some land. We had standoff between our neighbors. Not that I don't like my neighbors, but with this property and this new plat, we have this 40 wide lot that's going to be right across from my property, right, with this orange. And when that happens, I'm going to be looking right at these big homes instead of this beautiful landscape. And I know that maybe isn't a reason for most of you to oppose this, but it is for us, right? That's our sanctuary. That's where we're raising our kids, and we were happy to do so kind of until now. And so we're pretty disappointed this is occurring. I understand why it's occurring. I understand Rachel Development. I understand the decision you have to make as a city. But I feel like the neighbors here are almost like a collateral damage almost, so to speak. So I wish there was a way that we could maybe take apart and redo this northern section, right? And maybe I don't have to change my whole address because 103rd's going away. That would be nice too. And the easements on my property wouldn't be redone. That would be great as well. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Rod Hale. Mr. Hale, as my city administrator reminded me, if we can get your name and address, please.
Rod Hale, 11701 Great Cloud Trail, Cottage Grove. Well, thank you very much. I feel a little bit like the gentleman that spoke a few minutes ago that complimented Rachel on their development, because I agree, it's a beautiful piece of project. It looks really great. It just happens to be in the wrong place. It probably belongs on another 120 acres that we've got scattered throughout Cottage Grove, and I kind of wish they would consider that. The Planning Commission is perhaps the most important commission we have in the city of Cottage Grove. And I also compliment you on your service and for the city. You're really the gatekeepers of what our city is going to look like, not only now, but 20, 30 years from now. And I think you'd like to look back and say, hey, I've done a good job in directing the city. And I just think that we need to reconsider the proposal that Rachel has presented before us. And I don't know how many of you have seen the property. If you stood on it from the top, as it was said, on 103rd Street, and pulled out that plat they built like this and looked at that and say, hey, that's what it's going to look like? And I think you'd say, no, we can do better. You know, the state of Minnesota has set aside money for the purchase of property much like the dunes. And it's my understanding that this particular property is in very high on the criteria for the purchase. And I don't know if have you been aware of that the state was actually trying to buy this property for the citizens of Cottage Grove, give it to us? I think, I just pause a little bit and let's take a look at that and see, compare that alternative to the one that's on the table. You know, the proposal is offering 13.6 acres for park dedication. Now, I know some of you will say, hey, we got all this 100 acres around it that's open too. That's right. I want to tell you, Rachel didn't pay for that land. You and I did. That's public land. That's our money. We already bought that property. It was that important to us and to those who decided to make that offer to the various agencies that bought it. You know, the Mississippi River is one of the most attractive and recreational rivers in the nation. And I think to do what we're doing to it now kind of destroys that. The proposal is asking for, or is giving us 13.6 acres for park dedication. And I know, well, that's true, but the developer didn't pay for that. You know, I understand that maybe Mr. Gustafson even had a role to play in the 13.6 acres that we got, so maybe Rachel didn't do anything. But I really want to bring this to your attention. You know, the purpose of a PUD, we started that when I was on the council many years ago. And it gave the opportunity for
Mr. Hale,
yes.
that was your time. Thank you.
Well, Bill Schwinn here, who's sitting in the front row, has agreed to yield his 3 minutes to me.
No, it doesn't work that way. Sorry. 3 minutes per person.
Can I make one more point, please?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I got a feeling I know how this is going to turn out.
Catherine Schwein.
Hi, my name's Catherine Schwen. I live at 1300 Gray Cloud Trail, and I don't have a lot of things other than what other people said to say, but I guess one of the things that Rod said, if anybody has come and just driven down 103rd Street and look over at the golf course area and just imagine what that would be like with all of those homes on there. And I'm asking, hoping that Cottage Grove is like forward-thinking and forward-looking enough to say we're not going to let this happen to this land. It'll never come back. We don't have land like this. And, you know, will Cottage Grove benefit from it, or will they be, will they show their true heart by saying, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to save this land. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Schwein.
Bill Schwen, I live with that woman, 10300 Gray Cloud Trail, and we've been down there since 1990, and it's we were there before the golf course was developed, And fortunately, the golf course didn't bring that many people in and didn't bring that many cars. And, you know, all winter long, it was still a pristine area with animals and birds and plants. It's just very special, and it's just incredible the way it's bounced back. Mother Nature has taken it over again, and there's a few things that concern me about this plan. I understand that Rachel did a nice job presenting this, and the 3 ponds that are on the property flow to a creek that flows through my property straight into the river. It's really short, and I'm looking at the density of of this plan, and I just can't for the life of me figure out what a 2-inch rain is going to do, how they're gonna get all that impervious, the roads, the driveways, the sidewalks, how they're gonna get all that water treated without a drop of contaminants getting into the river. It just, you know, maybe it'll work, but I just don't see it. And I'm wondering how many people are thinking about 377 homes sending one or more than one person to work in the morning, up that hill, through St. Paul Park. What kind of traffic flow are we gonna see in that area? The math doesn't work, and it's like everybody else has been saying up here. This is the chance of a lifetime you people have to save a very special property. 50 years from now, if we have that as a park and open area, they're gonna look back on the day and say, we almost had 377 homes here. So please think again. There's so many other properties, like Rod said, around the area that would be much easier to build on. No pump stations, don't have to bring the water in so far. So please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm probably gonna butcher this next one. Kevin Redigan. Reddington, thank you.
So I'm Kevin Reddington. I live at 6720 Meadowgrass Lane here in Cottage Grove. If you notice my address, I live in the northern part of the cities, not nowhere near this. My wife and I do enjoy going down to Highland Park. We really enjoy that. We've gone to the S&A area also quite a bit. But just kind of looking at the survey from Rachel, you know, I commend them. There's some groups in there like Brown Intertech that I respect, I've worked with in the past. I do have some concerns, though, of water doesn't just go into drains. It also goes into the ground. It filters through the water. We have a lot of problems with PFAS, but now we're going to turn this into 377 homes with manicured lawns. So we're going to have something filtering even through sand. It's going to filter through. So what's that going to impact our water table? How's that going to impact any of our water? Can some of that still propagate into the Mississippi? So I don't know if we've had an official, we call it a environmental review. I know they're doing an environmental review, but I remember in the past we've asked this at some of these meetings for one. We never really seem to get that feedback that we're doing an independent environmental review outside of Cottage Grove, outside of any planners. So I'm not sure if I see that anywhere, but going back to what everybody else is saying, this is a jewel, this is a gem. I come from a part in Tennessee where it is totally unrecognizable. We have paved over things and we've torn up some areas that were actually national, that were considered a state park and one a national park. So looking at this property, it's, as one guy said, it's a remnant. Remnants, as they are left fallow, do come back. And how should we lose this in future generations? I have a nephew that actually works in the area of natural resources, and he kind of even makes mention, wow, you guys have a gym there. If you guys could make that a park, you could attract people there, especially the younger generation like me. You'd attract us there to visit, spend money in that town. So that's all I have to say, but thank you.
Thank you. Kim Sonderegger?
I'm Kim Sonderegger. I live at 2513 34th Avenue South in Minneapolis. I'm speaking in opposition to the project. I'm co-site steward for Gray Cloud Dunes Scientific and Natural Area, and I believe that it would be severely affected by this development. I first became acquainted with both the SNA and the former golf course on the same day, one day a number of years ago. I had come to the SNA for a volunteer project, but I had the date wrong, so no one was there. And I decided to walk down the path from the SNA parking lot over the dunes. I was amazed at the quiet and beauty of the place. At the railroad tracks, I looked back, and to my surprise, heading down the path toward me were 3 teenage girls. Each one had a skateboard tucked under her arm. "Where are you off to?" I asked. "To the sidewalks," they answered. They invited me to come with them, which I did. It turns out they were local girls and were well acquainted with the now abandoned sidewalks on the golf course, on the former golf course. I admired the beauty of the dunes and looked out over the river while the girls skated. As the afternoon light was fading, we walked back up the dunes to the parking lot, and the girls continued on to their homes. Since then, I've spent many hours on the SNA performing my duties as site steward. My fellow is back here. I've recorded animal and plant species, including many threatened state and federally protected bumblebees particularly. Unfortunately, animals don't recognize our artificial property lines, so it's highly likely that these species ranges can continue onto the proposed development area. They would be greatly affected by construction and eventual development as would the entire SNA, I believe. Two factors that haven't been mentioned and maybe are less tangible, are noise and light pollution. And these would definitely be, I think, hugely detrimental. So I'll close by saying I believe that we should be protecting, not destroying, this place of great significance for wildlife and birds and for the young girls that I met that day and others like them. I never forgot that. Others like them who need a refuge of beauty, peace, and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny Clancy. No taker, all right. Andrew Maxaz. Marotz? All right. That's all I'm hoping for tonight.
Good evening, commissioners and my friends. My name is Andrew Marotz. I am your neighbor up the river in Minneapolis, 2920 37th Avenue South. I'm a habitat restoration ecologist, a wildlife biologist, and a community partnership specialist in natural resources. I would echo the things that most of our friends have said already tonight, and I'll offer my own perspective on something outside of that. My history with the site, I've hosted hundreds of volunteers on Gray Cloud Dunes SNA over the years, doing seed collection and invasive species management on site. I'm also an interpreter and have shared the story and the connection of the dunes to the Mississippi River numerous times. One thing I'd like to highlight is that you're very fortunate on this site. If you do choose to go a path other than developing the site and wish to restore the habitat, you're in very good luck. The site is in pretty remarkable condition for considering what's happened to it over the years. There's a lot of things left intact that could be quite easily restored. On top of this, you have a pretty incredible coalition of natural resource management organizations that would be jumping at the bit to manage this site with you and restore it to its former habitat. Who knew there was a national park in the Twin Cities? The Mississippi National River and Recreation Area, this falls within that site. The National Park Service and their partner, the Mississippi Park Connection, would have volunteer resources, monetary, and grant finding opportunities to restore the site. The Friends of the Mississippi River are already involved with the park planning on site as well. And you have some incredible site stewards through the SNA program and the ability to engage countless community members through this process as well. I commend the developers for setting aside so much land. 40% of acreage is pretty incredible, and will create an awesome river park with amazing access to the water. But it will be nowhere near the ecological functionality that could be gained by restoring the entirety of the site, particularly the dry prairie site. Again, I commend you all for meeting your legal needs and going above and beyond, especially as the plant survey is called for. But I would recommend mussel surveys, bird surveys, snakes and butterflies in an official capacity as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kendra Sommerfeld.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kendra Sommerfeld. I live across the river as well, 205 Concord Exchange North, South St. Paul. And it's kind of nice that I am following a fellow professional here, because as a water resource professional and also a restoration professional that works in protecting and improving our water resources like the Mississippi River, I second many of the statements made by everyone here, and I just have a few additional comments. And I want to touch on the plant animal assessments that were completed. They're a little skewed or flawed in my opinion, because the site is already disturbed. It's already, it's not a habitat. It's not what it should be. So there is not going to be endangered species on there. There's not going to be native plants on there. So to say that this project doesn't have impacts is correct in a sense, but instead, if we were to restore this area to what it was and what it could be, then you would have those very valuable ecological functions and services for everyone, and including everyone downstream and upstream and in the surrounding areas. So we have the perfect opportunity to correct those first wrongs, the egg and the golf course disturbances. But instead of correcting not a simple disturbance, but instead of correcting that, which we can, you're planning on completely destroying the area, putting houses and sewers and septic systems. That is very hard to come back from. And then I also want you to consider the broader issue of urban development. Look at all of your surrounding cities who are drowning in water quality issues, groundwater contamination, air pollution, flooding issues, because they are fully developed. They have no natural land. So we really have a great opportunity for Cottage Grove to be leaders in protecting this land and keeping those ecological services such as flood control and better air quality and natural spaces for everyone. So I ask you all to be an example for the entire state and protect this area. Do not destroy it, and be a leader in taking care of the environment as well as your community. And just another note is, if we continue to develop like this, we will have nothing left. Many cities have nothing left besides their small parks. So you have an incredible opportunity here, and don't miss out on it. Be a leader and be an example for everyone. And another small note, I just want to praise everyone for showing up here today. It's very hard to public speak, and so you should all be very proud of yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Clancy.
I don't think the claims.
Got some phantom people signing up then. How about Rosemary Moore?
Hello, I'm Rosemary Moore, and I'm here. My husband couldn't be here, but my husband, John Moore, is also very interested in this. We live on 8385 113th Street South in Cottage Grove, and we live above River Acres, in between, sort of, I walk to the dunes. I walk to the dunes, I snowshoe in the dunes. I'm a biker, I bike around Gray Cloud Island all the time. We moved from California to Minnesota, and we chose Cottage Grove to be near the Mississippi and near this beautiful parkland that was all around us. And I love that I can walk or bike and be in nature and not have to go into development, we could have moved to Woodbury. We could have moved anywhere where there's housing developments. And it's really a value, this particular area of, it was a golf course, but it's on the most pristine spot of, pristine land that, we couldn't believe that we could live near such a beautiful place. And with all of the ecological and environmental benefits of living, of having that near us that we're losing everywhere, there's plenty of places we could put new development. And this is really it's a decision that's based on values. And I think there could be other choices about where to develop. And I understand Cottage Grove needs to expand and develop. And, where I live, we're suffering the consequence of all these warehouses that are being built up all around us and lots of traffic. And I'm concerned about even more traffic with 300 some houses. And it's going to be really congested already with these warehouses and all the traffic. And so personally, I'm concerned about that. But I'm really glad the environmentalists came and spoke about some of the benefits that we're not even considering. And I learned a lot from people speaking before me. So thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you. Nico Edmondson.
All right. Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Nico Amundsen, and I live on 8130 East Point Douglas Road South, and such I reside within the Mississippi River watershed. I am here today to speak out about what I see as a great injustice to the people of Cottage Grove, of Minnesota, and of those living along the Mississippi River. I have lived in Cottage Grove since April of 2022, and anything recreationally that I wanted to do, I found elsewhere. However, one day I stumbled upon this pristine and untouched area, and I fell in love. Unlike the Ravine Park, which I have to pay to enter, I could go to this area and get away from the urbanized landscape that we as humans have created. It was there that I had heard about the city's proposed plans after seeing construction the spring before, leaving a cut area right next to the dunes, flattened and prepared for development. Seems a bit premature, seeing as we're discussing it here today. Have you even consulted the people of this community whose taxes will be going to fund the housing that none of us can afford? The proposed 377 house development will greatly harm not only the adjacent scientific and natural area, but the Mississippi National River Recreation Area and the Gray Cloud Dunes is a part of. Do you not care about harming the largest flowing national park in the country? 20 million people rely on water from the Mississippi, far more than the 40,000 who reside in Cottage Grove. What happens when these homes pollute and contaminate it? These homes are being proposed to be built on sand, which brings into question why we think this is any different than trying to build a house on a beach. This also brings in the other issue of protecting the land that is already there. What is going to be done to stop the inevitable encroachment of this area? That is the advancement of structures, roads, railroads, improved paths, utilities, and other development into natural areas and buffers around those areas. The Gray Cloud Dunes are the buffer, and they are the natural area. This needs to be protected. It is home to the Higgins Eye Pearly Mussel, that is the endangered species list in Minnesota for Washington County as it inhabits the Mississippi River. The rusty patch bumblebee, as many have talked about already, also calls the far edge of the dunes home. So what happens when this federally endangered species gets its home torn up and encroached upon? Have the lives of all the living things in and around the dunes been considered, or were we just planning to demolish their homes to make room for our own? The deer, coyotes, rabbits, birds that call this place home will now be boxed in on all sides. Areas like this have become increasingly rare due to our presence as people and our destructive nature. I hope you take some time to consider how devastating your actions can be and how they impact more than just our area. Your actions will directly affect 20 million people, if not more. I hope you all make the best decision for all of us and not just yourselves.
Thank you. Eric Hansen.
Hello, I'm Eric Hansen. I live at 10657 Gray Cloud Trail South. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm in opposition of the project as well. It's very easy for me to say that, having property right along both the river and the proposed development. I have a lot of self-interest in saying, yeah, I want a lot of really nice land around where I live. I do. However, as everybody else has echoed, there's a potential here that is unprecedented, both for Minnesota and the good of all of us throughout the nation. In my journey through the area, I've seen all kinds of animals that I don't see in a normal traipse anywhere else. I recently have seen ring-necked pheasant come back in this area, which I haven't seen around for years and years and years. In combination with the proposed regional park on the island, with this adjacent to it, I think that could create a nexus of recreation and enjoyment that most of us have discussed, and the spiritual nature of the benefits of being in nature. With those two parks combined in this geographical area, it could be an enormous jewel for the entire county, plus the metro as a whole. The rush to development in this particular system or circumstance is too fast. I was going to college in Minneapolis at the University of Minnesota in the 80s, and you could walk all the way from the University of Minnesota way past downtown through just expanses of dirt and undeveloped land. Minneapolis has to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to reclaim that land and make, it is now highly developed, but they've also built enormous parks because they see the value of reconnecting the city to the river. Here we have an opportunity to be connected. We are connected to the river, and if we take this opportunity and turn it into yet another development, 377 houses on that little place, oh my God. And it is, at this point, impossible for us to predict the combined effects of building or leaving this as it is and turning it into an amenity that can drive further green and sustainable practices and recreation and all kinds of other beneficial uses that can drive a different type of economic engine versus a plot of land that's going to be a bunch of houses that we're going to forget about once it's all done. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn Carr.
Hello. My name is Carolyn Carr, and I live in Minneapolis, 4050 39th Avenue South. I'm trained as a conservation biologist, and in that work, in the Twin Cities, I've been working with hundreds of volunteers for thousands of hours for about 20 years, helping restore right along the Mississippi River, right in the edge of my neighborhood in South Minneapolis. We're fortunate to have that place, which makes our neighborhood a gem right in the heart of the city, because previous planners dedicated that land to the public to access for natural areas, for the habitat that it provides for all the creatures that use it. Cottage Grove is an incredible place. Great Cloud Dunes is an incredible place because that land has been protected at Great Cloud Dunes Natural Area, Scientific and Natural Area. I visited it for about 20 years, and just about a year ago, I joined Kim being one of the co-site stewards as a volunteer with the DNR, paying attention on purpose, not just for fun, but like kind of with an official duty at the SNA. And these places are what we're here for as people, I think. And I know hundreds of people agree with me, thousands of people agree with me. I've worked with a number of volunteers through many organizations caring for the natural areas that we have. And you have a tremendous site. You've heard from so many people this evening who've said it so well. The opportunity to not build next to this scientific and natural area, but add that land to become a site of restoration for the future of the city is what generations that come will thank you for. And I urge you to be leaders, as so many people have asked you to be this evening, to envision that future for your city rather than more of the same. So I thank you for your time, and I urge you to be generous for our future about what decision you make today. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Nelson.
I wonder how close we have to be. I'm Sarah Nelson. I live in St. Paul at 646 Central Avenue West. And Chair and Commissioners, thank you so much for having us. I'm also a conservation and restoration professional, and I just wanted to share a little bit about my perspective from that angle. So Great Cloud Dunes is a really important spot for me. It was actually the first site that some of my botany mentors took me to when I was starting out getting into botany and understanding our Minnesota native plant communities. And since then, I've worked there with volunteers on a project actually collecting, with approval from the DNR, collecting prairie violet seeds, which is a pretty unique and rare plant that were being used to repopulate other areas in the region with this plant. So it's actually serving as a donor site. And I was just talking to somebody in the bee lab today who was telling me about another rare bee species that's only ever been found in Great Cloud Dunes SNA. It's called Neolara vigilans, and it's actually a parasitic bee that it doesn't even have a common name because of how rare it is. And I guess I also felt like the city planners and the developers have really taken a lot of consideration about, like, okay, we could leave the nicest part of the site, and the thing that was striking me throughout that presentation was just thinking about some kinds of, like, we all kind of intuitively have a sense that okay, well certainly building right next to this total ecological gem isn't going to be nice for it ecologically, and there are actually ecological and scientific models of the effects that these things are likely to have. So the impact we're looking at is not simply the site itself that will be developed, but also the wider region. There's a concept called island biogeography, which basically is talking about fragmentation, and the smaller you have of an intact ecological site, the faster the unique species in that site will go extinct. Just thinking about it in terms of the impact on the total ecology, I think is something that should be considered along with, it's all interconnected. And I would urge you to think about, like, there's so many of us in this room that really care about the site because of how precious all those species are. And it does feel like there's plenty of opportunity for people who would love to restore the former golf course and would just cherish it. Ecologically speaking, it's also serving right now, even unrestored, it's serving as a buffer for that, for the SNA. And so just please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Mueller.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Lisa Mueller. My address is N5001 810th Street in Ellsworth, Wisconsin. As such, I also reside in the Mississippi River watershed. I've been working in the conservation profession in Minnesota for over 30 years. I have a master's degree in ecology and environmental science and a graduate degree in education. I'd like to offer a bit of history relative to my involvement in this project. I attended the dedication ceremony for Gray Cloud Dunes SNA 25 years ago. I still remember my son, who's now 25, crawling around in the sand and having a grand old time. I was one of the plaintiffs, you may remember me, I was one of the plaintiffs in the Minnesota Environmental Policy Act lawsuit that was filed against the city of Cottage Grove by Friends of Gray Cloud, a group that I co-founded. Though our lawsuit was dismissed on a technicality, it was not dismissed on the basis of merit. We were elated when Pulte Homes withdrew their option to purchase the former Mississippi Dunes property, only to learn that the property owners had very quickly entered into a subsequent development agreement with Rachel Development Company. After attending the special meeting on September 6th and reviewing the Rachel Development proposal, I was sickened to learn that the new plans are every bit as ugly from a conservation perspective as was the Pulte proposal. Over the last 3 years, I've attended a dozen or more Planning Commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, and City Council meetings. During these meetings, I have listened to dozens of Cottage Grove and Gray Cloud Township residents express their opposition to the development of the former Mississippi Dunes property. Of the approximately 300 public comments that were submitted in response to the environmental assessment worksheet for the first development, the Pulte development, not one person wrote in favor of the development. 300 and not one. People implored the city to acknowledge both state and federally threatened plant communities, birds, and insects on this site and the adjacent Gray Cloud Dunes Scientific and Natural Area, which, as has been mentioned, includes noted locations, habitat for the rusty patch bumblebee, and I have a map that I can share with all of you that shows rusty patch habitat right on the, literally on the edge of the two properties. In addition to these legal and ethical considerations, we should be very much mindful of the fact that the property is underlain with PFAS contamination and buried hazardous waste and lies within the Mississippi River Recreation and Natural Area, a national park, as has been mentioned, and the Mississippi River Critical Area Corridor, a protective zoning category that runs for 72 miles, both north and south of the Twin Cities. Please hold firmly in mind that the majority of the original vegetation of Washington County has been almost completely altered. Any new construction should be on already altered sites that are devoid of natural features and not on a globally rare sand prairie adjacent to an SNA. Money is available to purchase this land for conservation.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Could I end with one quick thing?
Very fast.
Okay. I'm going to end with a quote from Robin Wall Kimmerer, one of my heroes, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass in recognition of the fact that there are Native American sites on Gray Cloud Island and possibly on the adjoining lands. Action on behalf of life transforms because the relationship between self and the world is reciprocal. It is not a question of first getting enlightened or saved, then acting. As we work to heal the earth heals us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maya Merchant.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commission members. My name is Maya Merchant, and I live at 8615 Kimbrough Lane North, Stillwater. And as such, I also reside within the Mississippi River watershed. I'm 19. I'm currently studying environmental science, and I'm deeply passionate about environmental conservation, stewardship, and justice. I'm here today in opposition to the proposed Rachel development project and to support the Friends of Gray Cloud group. As a result of growing up in a time where the entire globe is facing an existential climate crisis, I am keenly aware of the importance of natural areas open to public use and the necessity of politicians who think bigger and who have empathy for both the people and the planet. I encourage you to look beyond the perceived short-term financial appeals of development and to listen to the overwhelming voices of dissent currently being drowned out by greed. I implore you to abandon these myopic perspectives and instead think of how these decisions harm our futures and the lives of future generations. Ask you to think of your children or your grandchildren, the messages you wish to send them, and the planet you wish to leave them. Because ultimately, my life and their lives depend on the decisions we make today. And so I hope you make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Gerda?
Hi, my name is Laura Gerda. I reside at 2347 McKinley Street in Minneapolis. I am here in opposition to the Mississippi Landing Project development. I currently live in the city, and I have looked at some of the surrounding communities to move to. I've looked at houses here in Cottage Grove. And I can tell you, I would not move into this development. And the families and the community of Minnesota, their voices are so loud. I hear this community, and it's amazing. And I would love to be a part of a community that values nature. I have 2 kids. My kid went camping when she was 12 weeks old. We visit parks, we go up to the Boundary Waters. I want her to continue to love the earth and see it be better. You guys have a great opportunity here in Cottage Grove. And you can be leaders, you can be voices, and people can talk great about you. There's other options. And the community here and the people who are looking into all of this, I applaud you all. You have done so much hard work. And I'm glad to be here in support of the dunes. Thank you.
Thank you. John Schroeder.
All right, John Schrader, 8407 Penn Avenue South, Bloomington. I have a very good friend who grew up in Hastings, and that's pretty much my closest connection to Cottage Grove, but I'm happy to be here tonight because I'm supporting my friend's nonprofit. So I work on sustainability statewide. I work up at the University of Minnesota, and it's a pollution prevention institute. I probably started studying sustainability 15 years ago and have worked in the field ever since. I applaud Rachel Development very much for your due diligence. I'm happy about our federal processes and protocols that are in place that you need to follow before you develop anything. I know full well in my full-time job, I'm happy that there are conservation biologists here tonight and water management professionals, that prevention is the ultimate solution, pretty much when it comes to any natural problem. I work on waste full-time with companies statewide, and anytime they generate the waste, it makes my job a lot harder to figure out how to deal with it after the fact. We could be talking food waste or plastics, metals, paper, you name it. Water, energy, chemicals, same thing. From a development standpoint, the same also could be said. And I appreciate the woman on the far side of the room that mentioned kind of restoring the golf course or what that habitat looks like right now to its original standing. We have a much better shot of doing that right now than we would after the fact once a 377 kind of, development, plot development is actually put into place and having to dredge up a lot of those systems that you need to make people's lives functional where they're living. So I'm opposed to it, and thank you.
Thank you. That is the end of the sign-up sheet that I've received from staff. So is there anyone who has not spoken already who would like to address the commission? Go ahead and step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, thank you. My name is Dick Polta. I live at 9600 Geneva Avenue South. It's actually in Great Cloud Township. But I lived right next to the dunes for 17 years. Moved down there in 1966. And my property bordered it, okay? And I wish you people could have seen it back then. This is before the golf course. It was really beautiful back there. Then the golf course come in, tore it all up, made a mess of it, really. But you see how quick it's responded back from being a golf course. You know, after the golf course quit, within 2 years, you could hardly tell it's a golf course. Okay. So anyway, I'm thinking, you know, when I first moved down there, somebody wanted to develop it, and they said, well, housing's density is 1 per 10 acres. Well, now we went a little past that, you know, and I would suggest, I was talking to Representative Rick Hansen, and there is supposedly money available to purchase this property. And I'd suggest you look into that. Why not, you know? And me being in Great Cloud Township, I'm on our little town board down there, and we know we can't last forever as an independent community. Well, we've been looking at, you know, there's talk amongst residents, St. Paul Park, Cottage Grove, St. Paul, which one? And stuff like this scares people, you know? And when I come home at night and I see the new houses up on 100th and Hadley, and I see them about this far apart, you know, you can't even put an extension ladder next to your house without putting it against your neighbor's foundation. You know, I mean, really, I mean, and I think this guy, if I seen it right, some of the setbacks, if I read it right, were 5 foot from the property line. Because he mentioned the comparison of the houses he's proposing to them up there. Well, people look at that and people don't want that. And I look at too is, how are people gonna get down there? Nobody's suggested yet how they're gonna do that 103rd Street hill. Go under the bridge, over the bridge. You can't go underneath the railroad tracks because you can come into water. You go above it, you're gonna be way up in the air. Nobody's addressed that problem. Then I just look at his development. I'm looking at, I drive school bus part-time, I'm retired. I'm thinking, where are the kids gonna play? I mean, I see house after house after house. Yeah, you do have the land down by the river, and I give the city council and Jennifer credit for buying and purchasing that. But the rest of it, you don't see a neighborhood park. All the rest of the place that drop off kids, there's neighborhood parks. There's none of that down there. So anyway, you know, to me, it's just too much. You can build a stupid house anywhere. You know, you don't have, that's the only piece of property you people have in Cottage Grove similar to that really can't be replaced. The lower island eventually, when Holcim gets done down there, but that could be 30 years away. You know, nobody will really tell you the truth how long it's gonna last. So I'd suggest don't blow this opportunity. Talk to Representative Hansen. Like he said, we gotta stuff the 377 in to make it, you know, make it cost effective. Well, maybe it just ain't the right place to stuff 377 houses. You know, maybe you should go somewhere else. But don't blow the opportunity to get this. And like I say, the rest of the communities are looking at you, our community's looking at you, they're looking at, what's Cottage Grove gonna do with that? If we ever next to you say we decided Cottage Grove, what would they do to us? So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I got one coming in the door right now, and then you're next, sir.
Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Jennifer Nedry. I live at 7764 Jasmine Avenue South. I've been coming to meetings for a number of years now. One thing that I have heard over and over is that the owner of the land has rights. The owner of the land has rights. I haven't heard that spoken this evening completely, but what I want to say is all of these taxpayers have rights. There have been concessions made to the developer that is going to use our tax money, and the taxpayers have rights. And I think that we need to weigh that against everything that has been said this evening and know that there are ways to work this out in a way that's amenable for everyone. And again, Rachel, thank you for all the work that you've done, but everything can be skewed. Potentially, I hear lots of different perspectives about things, and I just want to weigh the city of Cottage Grove, the residents, and the taxpayers. We voted against a community center, and yet I hear that, oh, there's going to be some kind of thing in the park that's for use for everyone. Again, there is a multitude of people who are not here this evening who voted against things for the city of Cottage Grove. One owner's rights should not be supersede all of the taxpayers in this community. I love the city of Cottage Grove. I want it to be not Woodbury Light. I want it to continue to be a wonderful place. I do not have children, and yet I want it to be a wonderful place for future generations. I want it to be the Lanesboro of this community, where people know it for the SNA and the land surrounding it. I want it to be all of the volunteers to populate it with all of the species that have been talked about. And again, I just implore you to take the rights of all of the people who have chosen to make this their home in their community and weigh that against one owner's rights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Martin Cursius. I live at 2513 34th Avenue South in Minneapolis. And I would second, third, and fourth, and fifth what the lady just said. There's a lot more to consider other than the rights of some builder to make a lot of money building this project. Frankly, it's a no-brainer. I mean, look where we are in the world today, 2024. The planet is collapsing. We need all the good land that still remains should not be sacrificed. And it's just remarkable that this project has gotten this far. I happen to know an archaeologist who has worked in environments where they go out and they look for reasons not to do a project like a road or a railroad or a housing development. And unfortunately, this person told me that their mandate is don't look too hard, don't find anything, or we won't get more contracts and stuff. So I'm not casting any dispersions on the Rachel Development Company, but I would be very careful about all these environmental infractions that are likely to ensue from this project. And 377 little houses on the hillside, little houses made out of ticky-tacky, as the song once went. Those of you who are old enough in this room to remember that song. I was born on Earth Day, April 22nd. And I've always taken that seriously. I was a Boy Scout. I love the outdoors. I love the boundary waters. Somebody here referred to the boundary waters in their comments about how that area was saved. And this site is not as big as the boundary waters by any stretch of the imagination. But like I said, we need every little piece of real prairie and real land. These houses can go anywhere. And I think it's telling that, well, maybe there's someone back there, but I haven't heard one person, one citizen of this town or this area get up and say this is a good idea.
Thank you. Anyone else who has not spoken who would like to address the commission?
Hello, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. I am not prepared. I'm not a person to get up and talk.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? Name and address, please.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Penny Walters, 6961 99th Street Court. I live about 6 blocks away. I'm going to bring up something. I'm originally from the North Shore of Lake Superior, and when we need to decompress, we can go sit by the lake. I live in Cottage Grove now for 7 years. I live next to Hadley Boulevard. You don't compress next to Hadley Boulevard. I can sit out my yard. I can't compress. The noise, the traffic. Now we're getting 2 apartments across the street from me. The warehouses are starting to load up. Well, one's in. We go for a walk on the beautiful paths that Cottage Grove gives us, but we can't decompress. The traffic, all the time. My daughter said, "Mom, there's a park down the street." We went down and we walked along the water. I didn't have to listen to a car. I didn't have to listen to anything. And that's what we're missing in Cottage Grove. We moved here to babysit 2 little grandchildren. I take them to all the city parks, but it's noise, noise, noise. I take my grandkids down there, and they even like looking for poop on the trail because they can be out in nature, and we don't have that anyplace. We do once in a while have to go to on the St. Croix River, but it gets noisy there with all the boats. There's no boats down there. Please don't take this away from us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara McAdams, 6999 East Point Douglas Road South, Cottage Grove, Minnesota, 55016. I didn't hear anything about the traffic that the 2 people per house will be driving to and from and daycare and whatever. I didn't hear anything about that. The reason why I mention it, we at the Legends are going to have another apartment building next to us. And so I said, why don't you just put the senior people there? No. You know, they said, no, we had something there, but they weren't, quite sure of it and things like that. But I says, there's going to be traffic there too. There's going to be kids on bikes. It's going to be 5 stories. It's going to be 184 apartments. So please, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else who has not already addressed the commission who would like to now?
I'm not prepared. I'm Lenny Clancy. I live at 8063 113th Street South. Was not prepared at all to speak. I accidentally signed up for, I guess, my husband and myself. But, some of the things that maybe you're not thinking about or not putting into perspective yet, this early into the project. But when it comes to okay, you're going to have all these other developments here. What's going to happen with, obviously, we're going to have a lot of children. We're going to need another school or schools, which is also going to cost all of us more money yet. And like they're saying, the noise, the light pollution, and that's the only place you can go where it's so peaceful and quiet, because I've walked it, and it is a gorgeous piece of property. And looking down, like when you're on 103rd looking down, you just can't envision 377 homes there. It's just such a shame not to really use this. It's a legacy that we can have. And we want that. And that's why I've got over 100 signatures from just 3 days of going out and talking to my neighbors. Nobody wants this, except it seems like you guys want it. We don't want it. The whole Cottage Grove doesn't want this, and yet you're still gonna just push us, right down our throats, whether we like it or not. And I don't know what to do to say that we don't want it. Somebody's got to listen. This is our last chance of having that beautiful piece of property and keeping it for the citizens and our future generations of children growing up that can really appreciate it. Such a legacy that we got to keep. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else not already spoken who would like to? Seeing none, I'm going to close public hearing on this application then. Do we want to take a recess now, or is everyone good on commission?
Mr. Chair, could I just ask for the recess, please?
Sure.
We would appreciate it. Thanks.
Without objection then from any other members of the commission, we'll take a 10-minute break. Ms. Mather gave us a handout that'll be part of the record as well. And then there was a map that was submitted by Ms. Mueller directly to me. She referenced it in her presentation. So without objection, those are going to be added to the public record for the hearing. All right. Amanda Meyer, city engineer, is going to address some of the issues that were brought up by the public during the public comment.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So I made a list here of some of the engineering-related questions that were asked this evening. I'm going to try and summarize all of them in one concise response. So first, wanting to start with sanitary sewer. The proposed development is proposed to be serviced fully with city sanitary sewer, so no septic systems on the site. There is a lift station being proposed as part of this project and associated force main to bring that sewer up the hill, as was mentioned. The cost associated with all of that sanitary sewer infrastructure is borne by either the developer or funds that are not taxpayer dollars. As compared to the River Acres neighborhood, I know that was mentioned, there was a question about servicing that River Acres neighborhood and the expense of that. The difference in that scenario is that would be an accessible project. And 100% of those costs, based on the city's special assessment policy, those costs could be assessed 100% to those residents. So extending the pipes, building the lift station, all the associated infrastructure would be borne by those residents. I did want to talk, there was a question about flood insurance for this neighborhood. Based on the proposed grading, the lowest lot being proposed currently is approximately 50 feet above the floodplain. So this would not be applicable for that flood insurance. I did want to talk a little bit about stormwater and water kind of combined, in that the storm sewer system as designed, there's a bunch of pipes underneath the road through some rear yards that capture the storm sewer, discharge it into ponds. Prior to the ponds, there's sump structures. That helps to capture some of those initial pollutants, if you will. They're 3-foot sumps, so there's basically a little basket that sits in the bottom of those structures to help some of those pollutants settle out. We then have stormwater ponds that do a similar thing, where it's settling out those the phosphorus and the total suspended solids. As part of the city's requirements for storm sewer, I just wanted to note that we do require new development projects in a post-development scenario that they reduce total phosphorus by 50% and total suspended solids by 80%. I also want to note that with the direct discharge to the Mississippi River, there's an additional restriction on total phosphorus loading. There's a maximum of 0.22 pounds per acre per year, or the existing loading rates, whichever is lower. So recognizing that there is discharge to the river after it has been treated through the storm sewer system within the site. Additionally, as part of the storm sewer system, as Emily had mentioned in her presentation, there are infiltration basins that helps the groundwater recharge. Now, this area is outside of our groundwater capture zone, so it's not impacting those wells that are, within the system. Those, the city's water main. So as you all know, PFAS contamination is prevalent here in the city. The city has been very proactive in ensuring that we are providing clean water for Cottage Grove. We have a variety of temporary treatment plants online, and we've started construction of our first permanent drinking water treatment plant. So all of the properties that are connected to city water are being provided that clean drinking water. And the irrigation and the service of these additional homes is being accounted for as we design those treatment plants, the associated trunk mains, and those sorts of things. The last thing I wanted to touch on real quick is related to traffic. As part of the original Pulte proposal, they did do a traffic impact study that did look at the 499 units that were included in the EAW. As part of that, they looked at both a no-build and build scenario. They looked at, I believe it was 7 different intersections, and in both scenarios, all of those intersections were still operating at the appropriate level of service. I do want to mention that that was also completed prior to looking at the extension of 100th Street out to the Highway 61 Innovation Road interchange, which also helps alleviate a lot of the traffic we're seeing kind of in that Jamaica 100th area. As noted, we do have commercial and industrial developments in the area that are bringing traffic, and with the residential, there is a bit of a benefit to kind of offset the traffic patterns of our industrial properties with the residential that are kind of going opposite directions in the morning. We see those industrial properties bringing traffic in where residents are typically leaving the area. So it helps kind of balance out those roundabouts where we see some of that congestion. I did also, the last note I have here is related to the bridge approach. Any proposed improvements that would be done to the hill coming down 103rd would have to be part of a future county led project. But as part of this development, there are going to be flashing bridge height signs, as well as flashing stop signs, and then flashers on additional stop ahead signs. I do want to note that the roadway underneath the bridge is 2 lanes. The reason for the stop signs is really to provide that additional sight line, right? So as somebody is approaching that crossing, it's not quite perpendicular, so it provides a little bit more view of what's ahead of you. And with that, I will pass it over to our City Administrator, Jennifer Levitt, who wanted to answer a couple of questions as well.
Well, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission, it is not very often that I get to come here, so thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. One of the topics that's really near and dear to my heart is the 3M settlement. Obviously, since 2006, we've been tracking PFAS challenges here in the city of Cottage Grove. And as part of that $800 million settlement that the Attorney General was able to settle for with 3M, the DNR had a specific set aside, as was referenced, of $20 million for natural resources. As part of that, it was defined like as water accesses, fishing piers. The co-trustees, which are the DNR and the PCA, have actually started their subgroup work on that. I want to be very clear about that because I don't want you to assume that $20 million of that set aside is coming to Cottage Grove. There's actually no specific link to it other than in regards to the co-trustees, and we are party to that. So there isn't a specific set of $20 million that's coming to Cottage Grove for land acquisition. So if you were to look at the settlement dollars, that language was very clear. It was more for natural resources, and they referenced specifically water access, fishing piers, and things of that nature. One of the interesting things is on the screen is all the different land that's been acquired. Over 4 years ago, the city approached the DNR about acquisition and their desire to acquire the land. What they desired was to acquire that little box at the bottom, which was about 12.3 acres. And you may ask yourself, well, why only that? Well, they were only interested in the rare and endangered species, which they knew were on that piece of land, which is what they wanted to acquire. Now, just to clarify, some of the individuals who spoke tonight said that that would be eradicated. Well, that is not true because you saw on the environmental study that where those rare plant species were is exactly where the DNR wants to acquire it. Now, in the process between Pulte in the last 2 years, as they left the project, that large triangular piece of land the DNR had interest in. Now, I know you guys serve on the Planning Commission, and so you're very well aware of what zoning is. And you know that that triangular piece of land that's in green on the map was guided and zoned medium density. And so I know Emily will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like 15 units per acre. The DNR found value in that land. The DNR had an opportunity to acquire additional land, and they have not pursued it with the city or the landowner. So the DNR is very content with the acquisition that they're proposing. And the residents have mentioned Representative Hansen a couple of times. Well, as a matter of fact, we had our legislative meeting last week, and he was in attendance. His purpose for that $6 million is for those 2 parcels that the city of Cottage Grove actually platted to help ensure and enable that purchase to happen. So yes, the DNR's money that's been aside is doing just that. Unfortunately, the DNR is going through a reappraisal process right now, and it has delayed the acquisition. Originally, that acquisition of those 2 parcels would have been completed by December of 2023. They're now reappraising the project, and the DNR has said it's going to be 4 to 6 months until those appraisals are done. So the DNR and the landowner have been trying to get to the finish line on that because those are the parcels the DNR believes has the most significant value. There is also some reference that there is hazardous materials on the site, and I just want to be very clear, as you saw from all of the work that was done by the applicant, that there is no hazardous materials on this site. It was interesting, one comment talked about water levels, say in wells. Now, just to be very clear, there is no private wells being constructed on this parcel, so there is no well interference challenges with the existing private wells that are on the site, and I think there's approximately 4 or 5 wells that will actually be abandoned and will be capped. And from a wellhead protection standpoint, that's actually exactly what we want to have happen, is have those sealed and protected so that we reduce contamination. And if the resident was specifically thinking about our municipal wells and the concern that the drawdown on the aquifer would have, it's actually been modeled by the Metropolitan Council in the last 10 years and in conjunction with the DNR to actually look at our static water levels within our wells to ensure that we don't have any drawdown challenges. Now, some of you probably are wondering, well, why did that work happen? Well, actually, it was because of the White Bear Lake lawsuit. So I can attest and assure you that the records for our drawdown of our wells have no impact on the standing of the aquifer, and our wellhead protection is all well intact in regards to that. So I just wanted to make sure that we provided a little bit more context around some of the questions and statements that were made.
All right, thank you. And then our city attorney, Corey Land, wanted to add a couple of things that she had in regards to questions and comments that were raised by the public.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Some of this will be a repeat for those of you who have been through my training. And for those of you that haven't, I look forward to saying it to you again. But as you know, the legislature has given local control for planning. And so that some of the comments were made, this is within your control to change. Within those planning statutes, it says the Planning Commission can develop a comp plan. And if you have a comp plan in the 7-county metro area, you must have a comp plan that has a land use map in it. That land use map guides the development for your community. You have a comp plan with a land use map that was just adopted a couple of years ago, and it proposes up through 2040 how you envision this community to develop. And then you take your comp plan and you develop your zoning ordinance. And that takes all of the comp plan guiding and it puts it in more detail so that you know how to apply it to specific zoning districts with all of the rules. So you have those rules in place that came out of the guiding document. Then you take your zoning ordinance and you develop your subdivision regulations. So we have all of these rules that have been through both the Planning Commission and the Council so that you have your planning documents and how you want the world to see how to develop in the city of Cottage Grove. Once you have an application, you don't get to change the rules on those people. That's the bottom line. So we have rules in place. You don't get to pull the rug out from under an applicant. Once they submit their application, and they submit an application that complies with your rules, you have to apply your rules. There have been some good questions raised by some of at the public hearing regarding traffic, regarding all of the sanitary sewer and the other utilities and how it will affect things. Those were very well answered by the city engineer. That's the evidence you need to weigh against your rules. So if you feel like that was adequately answered, you check the boxes. But that's what you need to be applying, not what could have or should have or might have happened prior to this application coming forward, but what's in front of you today. I know that's not what people want to hear. They want to hear you can change the rules. I'm telling you, please don't. Because frankly, I don't like it when somebody serves us with a lawsuit saying that you could have done something differently. I'm telling you what the rules say you have to do. So apply them appropriately. If you have any questions about those rules, I'm certainly here to help you answer those questions. But as I think it was Mr. Olson said, staff wouldn't bring forward an application or this particular project unless it met your rules.
Thank you. Any question? Amanda Meyer.
Sorry, I realized I missed one question that I just want to answer on the record related to the sanitary sewer. The existing residents that are surrounding this Mississippi landing proposal would not be forced to connect to those city utilities.
Okay, and I was going to ask you about that because you said that the other neighborhoods that were already there, if there was gonna be a lift station that was put in place for them, it would be assessed against their property, but there is not a plan to do that at this point.
For the River Acres neighborhood, that is correct, Mr. Chair.
But this proposed development, there would have to be, but that would be borne by the developer and then the people who are gonna buy those properties.
Mr. Chair, that is also correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff from the commission?
So,
Commissioner Bott.
so this question regards to what you just said. Rules are not going to be changed, but if we hear some differing, let's say, opinions from the specialists or the experts. So for example, the overarching concern here is regarding environmental impact, right? And there have been few residents and non-residents who claim to be biologists or ecologists, conservation specialists, who seem to have provided a differing opinion. So in that case, how do you deal with that?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Bott, that's a great question. You have been presented with the evidence. And so it is your duty to weigh the evidence based on whether the developer is presenting factual information or whether you think that the testimony that you received that didn't provide written documentation, but certainly testimony as to their expertise, which is given greater weight. And that's why you get paid the big bucks to decide. But that's the evidence that's in front of you. That's why we have public testimony, because you need to weigh the evidence from both sides.
Any questions for Commissioner Fisher?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to commend everybody who came to speak tonight. We appreciate hearing. I know we joke about it being a long meeting and we don't want to be here until tomorrow, but we do appreciate the citizens and them coming forward with their concerns and their feelings. I also want to commend Rachel Contracting and the environmental lady, what's your name again? Melissa, sorry. I'm so thankful that you came and spoke tonight because I really felt like that was missing from the Pulte. I've been here a while, so I was here through the whole Pulte thing too, and I really, really appreciate how you broke out every single species that have been talked about and where they are and what the actual impact is, because I think a lot of people the environment is really the overwhelming reason why people are against this. And so I just thank you very much for doing all that due diligence and presenting us with a very clear, very precise report on this particular parcel and what it looks like as we develop it. So thank you very much for that.
Any other questions, comment, discussion, commission? Public comment is closed. Thank you, though. At this time, we're just discussing as a commission what the next step is. So,
I have one more thing.
Commissioner Fisher.
I have one more thing that just reminded me. There was a comment, I don't remember by whom, it doesn't matter, but saying that she hoped that we read the whole packet or we had enough time. And I just wanted to underline, we as commissioners, we don't do this for fun. We don't do it halfway. I personally read every single page of that packet myself. And so I just want to reiterate that fact to the citizens that we take this position seriously. And so to slightly infer that maybe we didn't have enough time to review all the evidence is incorrect. And so just know that we as a council, we're not council, as a commission, take this role seriously. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Knable.
Yeah, I'd like to, piggyback on that as well. It wasn't an easy read by any means. And, getting it on a Friday afternoon and being ready for Monday was quite the task. But I do really appreciate Rachel coming out tonight, really kind of giving some of those bullet points, that was really hard to understand in the packet a little bit. And then just all the public feedback tonight was incredible. The reason I'm sitting on the commission tonight is because I was out there in the public going up against the community center at one point. And, I think it's great to see everybody here tonight. And I really just appreciate the city of Cottage Grove and the public coming out tonight. So thank you.
Further comments, Commission, or comments, discussion? Commissioner Stevens.
So I just wanted to state that, especially like your comment or question kind of about the differing opinions and the information we have. I think one of the biggest things is we got that somebody went through and filled out the environmental questionnaire and it gave a different answer. I actually do these sort of worksheets quite a bit, and I think that I just wanted to reiterate that that is a really standard answer where you say, no, you're not going to be polluting it because all of these city codes and engineering requirements are put in place. They wouldn't allow you, like she said, the application would be denied right away if you were going to have that. So I just wanted to note that really that was the only written piece of documentation that we did have from what I can tell. And then also just because I'm in similar work, I know somebody had said that you're told to not look for those things, but actually being a part of different small, large developments and natural resource protection. That's not the case. I think it's rare that you would find someone that does that. We really want to make sure, all professionals want to make sure that they're doing their due diligence and their jobs correctly. And I think that everything that was presented tonight was really well thought out. And you can tell that the developers did a really thorough job of making sure that they stood behind everything that they found as well. So I just wanted to give that 2 cents. That's all.
Thank you. Any further comment, discussion by commission? Well, I guess I'll sum up, as I always do when we have a large crowd here. I want to thank everybody for coming. I like it when we have people here to bring kind of outside opinions, because most of the time at these meetings, it's us and staff, and we sit here and we listen, and it sounds great, and we move on. But having members of the public here who raise valid concerns, who bring up things that maybe we haven't thought about, makes the process better. And so as you heard, the application that was made protects a lot more property as open space than is required by our code, as required by state statute. And I credit that a lot to both Rachel Development being willing to do that, staff for working on that issue, but also for the community and the residents showing up and saying, this is what we are demanding. We want to have this kind of public access. And without that work by residents who come and spend their nights sitting here and talking to us, it doesn't happen. So thank you everyone for doing that. You are an important part of the process. Where we come down on this issue, I know somebody came up and said, rights of the property owner, what about the rights of the taxpayers? So Ms. Land just told you, right? Us as a city, we have to tell somebody how we're gonna use the property before they even put in an application. That's just fair, right? Here's what you can do with this property, so that they have an opportunity to say, okay, we're gonna do that with the property. If they come forward with an application and say, hey, we've met all your rules, we can't now go, actually, we just changed the rules, and now you got to build a shopping mall there instead. Sorry. That's not how it works. We don't get to pull the rug out from people. If this was a city-owned parcel, and we're talking about what do we want to do with the city-owned parcel, I think that's a different scenario. If we want to turn a city-owned parcel into a park, that's a great conversation to have. But the fact we have a private property owner saying, hey, you guys told me I can put houses on this piece of property. We've met all the rules to put houses on the piece of property. We can't now say, sorry, now we want a park. That's not fair to the property owner. And frankly, it's not fair to anybody else. Because if you come in tomorrow and say, I want to put a shed on my property, the statute says I can, the rules say I can, and we say no, that's the same thing. We as the government cannot tell you what to do with your property unless we have a public hearing, we put the rules out ahead of time, and let you know what the rules of the game are. That's just fair. That's due process. And it's required for every single person in the United States. So I hear what you're saying. It's great to have more open space. We all want to have more open space. But there are rules to the game, and especially at the Planning Commission, we have to follow the rules. And so where I come down today is, I believe the application meets the rules for the city, and it should move forward with our blessing to City Council. That's just my opinion, though. Any further discussion by commission? Okay, seeing none, I would look for a motion then.
I'll move to approve, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Britton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Knable. Any further discussion on the motion to approve? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Move on to item 7, which is approval of the minutes. 7.1 is Planning Commission meeting minutes from December 18th of 2023. Unless there are any additions or corrections, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Knable. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Fisher. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item 8 is staff reports and materials. 8.1 is recap of city council meetings with Administrator Levitt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. I will keep it brief since we're after 10 o'clock this evening. The City Council met on January 3rd, and at that meeting, they spent some time talking about the Dowdle puzzle art project. I know that all of you were invited to the breakfast that we had where Eric Dowdle was in town visiting Cottage Grove. It's a very exciting project as he's a folk artist who will be telling the story of Cottage Grove, both through our history and our present, and also the people that have made and shaped our community. So please be watching out for more information on that. One exciting project that the council held a workshop on was the development of a new building at Kingston Park. So our Parks Commission have been working in conjunction with a lot of our large park users over the last 6 months, developing renderings and ideas of what that new park would look like. So it'll be exciting to bring forth that design to all of you and to get some feedback on that. So stay tuned. One thing that we always host every year is a strategic planning workshop with the city council and staff. It's a great opportunity for us to, really look at where are things trending, what are emerging issues, what are the newest things in the market that we maybe need to be aware of. And it's a great time for us to develop specific strategies. And so you'll be hearing more about some of those strategies related to a housing study as we continue to figure out where some of the gaps are in housing. We really want to bring more affordable housing to Cottage Grove, and how do we do that? And we'll also be talking more about developable land along the 100th Street corridor from Highway 61 to Jamaica Avenue, and what that will look like in the future. So those are things that you'll probably be seeing this year, maybe in a workshop setting. And then on the January 17th meeting, the City Council did approve Lumberman's outdoor storage and CUP, and they also approved the Roars development at the end of East Point Douglas. So all of those things were passed, and we definitely appreciated all your work in vetting that project. It was definitely a challenging one and had a lot of interesting items to go with it. So thank you for your diligence in working through that application. And now I'll turn it over to Councilmember Kabata.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't normally get an opportunity to make an impassioned speech in front of how many people were in this room a few minutes ago. And I also don't want to sway your guys' decision-making process. And as I'll be seeing this meeting, or this presentation come up at our next city council meeting, I'm going to reserve any judgment until I see that presentation and have an opportunity to discuss amongst the other council members as well. But I did want to speak to some of the facts of what we on council have heard from members of the community over the length of time that this has been a topic of conversation for our city. But first and foremost, to thank everyone that took the time and energy and really kind of courage to come out, stand up, and speak their mind. I know that that's not hard and that's not easy, and much to Commissioner Knable's point, you know, I got started on that bench because of something that I wanted to try and see happen in our community. And I just have to commend everyone that took the time to come out. And, you know, regardless of your guys' decision, their time here was valuable. And I'm glad that I got to listen to everyone's concerns. A couple of things kind of rose to the top. Access, preservation, stewardship. I think when this application first came before the city several years ago, we were talking about a 15 or 18% land preservation rate or statistic. In that time, council sent out a survey to every citizen who has an address in Cottage Grove, asking them what their priorities were for the city. One of them that was overwhelming was access to parks and open space. Wanting to increase our access to the river, that's been a long-standing priority for the council. And, you know, subsequent to that, we tasked our staff, Jennifer Levitt, Zach Doctor, who, if you don't think we care about the outdoors, you should sit down and have a conversation with Zach. He leads our Parks Department, and I swear that guy puts in more time, more of his own time, trying to find money for parks in this community. It's admirable. So our staff believes in what we're doing and trying to preserve and gain access to parks. And this is a blighted property. It's a derogatory term, but this is a property that fell into disrepair. It's had property damage. It's been dangerous at times, but you know, blight has several different definitions. One of which is, you know, it's taking away from, right? So like this is taking away from the overall aesthetic of the community. When it was a golf course, it was beautiful. As a shuttered golf course that no one's taken care of, we've kind of seen, you know, that it hasn't always been great. And regardless of the outcome, whether it becomes prairie restoration, whether it becomes housing, the unfortunate fact is something has to happen with that land. It can't just stay the way it is. And that's where the blight is that there's no clear direction, right? So, I mean, it's gonna be a hard topic, and I know from the people that were here, it's difficult to have taken that courage and come up and talked at that, and spoke at that podium, and then not get the outcome that they were hoping for. I hope they'll come to our council meeting. I hope they continue to engage with the community and on not just this issue, but on other issues. Every little bit is gonna help kind of turn the dial in favor of what the overall community wants. Dave Olson is one example. I know for a fact I don't always agree with him, but I like to think that having him on our Parks Commission helps keep everyone, you know, kind of grounded in you know, here's an opposing opinion and it's valid. So I appreciate that he speaks his mind as freely as he does. But also in terms of tax funding, where are dollars going to come from? The city really has tried to make this a priority, but we have to manage a lot of things. You know, we had to have a pretty frank conversation with the MNPCA regarding the 3M contamination and what's being done and how quickly it's being done. Behind the scenes, I think everyone in our city staff and everyone on our council really is putting the environment first, even though in some scenarios it might not feel like it. And yeah, I just really have to commend staff on all of the effort that they've put forward to take this from 18% park preservation to potentially 40% park preservation through partnerships, through advocating with our county officials to bring those dollars back to Cottage Grove. And now I'll open myself up for questions from the commission.
Thank you. Any questions for the council member? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
8.2 is response to planning commission inquiries. We didn't have any from last meeting. So 8.3 is request for staff. Any requests for staff before next meeting? Seeing none, I would move on to item 9, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn from Commissioner Fisher and Mr. Olson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Commissioner Knable. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Motion is approved, 6-0. We are adjourned.